He immediately thought about why the flying dragon of the seven swords had dropped from his hands and collapsed here. But judging by the marks, he had been hit with incredible force when he was unprepared. The case was now solved. But the flying dragon of seven swords approached like a ghost. During the battle, the warrior shouted to his ally that he would block everything here and let the guy help Yenu. The boy turned to him and said that if he looked at him, but the warrior told him to go faster, and why did he continue to stand? But their Huangbo Jin definitely fought him and gave him the biggest fight. Hawk knew that this was definitely true. After all, even he, his best friend, sometimes couldn't remember his face. Hawk thought, but why did he defeat the flying dragon of seven swords? Apparently, they met at a fork in the road. After all, Jin should have figured it out initially. On the way, he found another body and said he didn't know his name, but he remembered the clothes of everyone from the Blue Dragon team. He was definitely from there. And as expected, he didn't even suspect that he would be hit by Jin. Un had told him earlier that if the Blue Dragon team decided to use some tactics, then Yon Ho would be leading them. And next to him, as a guard, would be Il Tak. And Il Tak is also a key master. He thinks quickly and notices everything. But since it is him, he will be able to sneak up on him without any problems. Jin asked in surprise, "Is it him?" He will try his best. But what if it doesn't work? The senior classmate noticed him very quickly and caught him. Hawk believed that Jin was, after all, a human being, and even he couldn't easily notice him. And his senior classmate was simply not a human being. But now he knows that the Blue Dragon team has 3 out of 8 left. If he wants to take one down, he needs to hurry. But suddenly he heard something and immediately ran to the enemy's rear. But when he came out into the light, he saw that it was Tan Sam, and he was badly wounded. Hui stood next to his body and told him not to die and to open his eyes immediately. Hui walked up to him and asked what happened and slowly slapped him on the head to bring him to his senses. He suddenly opened his eyes and asked him why he was hitting him in the face. It hurt. But Sister Tan started cursing and screaming that she told him not to jump away. At this rate, they would all be killed. Hawk told the guy to rest, and he would save his sister. But suddenly the warrior appeared and told Sam not to worry. He would not attack his sister. Sister Tang asked him, "What kind of nonsense is this? She is not that trash's sister. He is not even from their clan." But Hawk told her that she scolded him as if she didn't want help. Sister Tan asked, "Does she really want help?" The enemies asked Miss Tan whether she should be sent to rest too, or maybe it would be better for both of them to rest. Hawk said that he had said that these two were formidable opponents. The warrior asked the boy, his name was Hawk, wasn't it? He had thoughtfully given him time to say goodbye to his comrades, and now he would send him off to rest. Hawk asked him, didn't he hear the words of his commander? He will put him to sleep on the ground in beauty. Jin put the 4th of the Blue Dragon team to sleep, and now he will try to defeat the 3rd in strength. Hawk remembered that he had been through so much, so he thinks that he is just a whipping boy and his opponent is deeply mistaken. Because in every corner of his body, pain that cut into the very bones. Thanks to it, he realized the path of Sura and created his own style. Hawk pounced on him and said that he would show the 3rd strongest the strength of a mad dog that had risen from the chaos. He immediately used the stick-beating technique, and 3 talented dogs. Rune had been watching the battle all this time, wondering how it would turn out. The warrior asked, "Is this a foreign beating technique?" After all, he is one of the best students of the leader of the gang of beggars. He saw a big dog in front of him and asked what kind of strange technique it was. But Hawk did not stop and shouted that it was a technique of beating 3 talented dogs. And under the first part, the human digger enters the attack and decided to make a fence dog out of him. The warrior was not afraid of anything and began to defend himself and repelled every attack of this guy. Hawk was surprised that he blocked his attacks, but he did not stop there and threatened him that he would bury him in the ground. Hui immediately started the second part called Earth Club. The warrior did not understand how this could be, and reflecting his attacks asked what this was. But Hui also understood that if he retreated, it would be the end. And he began the 3rd part of the Heavenly Iron, and he would smash the enemy into powder and raise him to the heavens. Seeing these strong and complex attacks of this poor guy, he decided that he just had to dodge and not get hit. At that moment, outside the battle area, Heron was enjoying sweets and suddenly the berry he was eating exploded. But Chang Hong said that both sides exploded with a bang. Yun asked in fear, "Did they survive?" and he would never have thought that Brother Hawk was such a scary person. Hui replied that they were knocked out by the pain, but the injuries were not fatal. But this stick style was completely different from the usual one. He did not know that the beggar gang used such an unusual technique. Chan Hong said that it was probably because the Falcons were close to their fool. You get what you want from who you hang out with. Heron liked his words and smiled and said that it was true. Ryun was like that. But aren't he and Hui friends with Ryun too? Chang Hong got angry and asked who else was friends with whom. He shouldn't be included in this list. Hui also said that he was too. Heron asked, do they all think that way? What does Yun think? He replied that Hawk had joined Tang Mu He. That meant that there were now 8 people from the Red Falcon team versus 4 from the Blue Dragon team. We could relax. Flameblade also said that he doesn't know where Hawk learned this, but this devilish technique works. But Ruin asked him what he was happy about now. Was it just him who saw that these idiots couldn't handle just 2 opponents? Flameblade replied no, and now the snowman only had 4 students left, and 2 more behind. Hack shouted to the enemy during his attack that now he is finished. The enemy replied that this homeless man is a real impudent one. Flameblade was watching everything and said that one of them was taken by a beggar. And this girl will be dealt with soon too. So that leaves only the guys in front. But suddenly Ryuan asked him what the hell they were doing. Suddenly Mrs. Peng decided to run away a little, but the team of Red Falcons stopped her and asked where she decided to go. But suddenly someone attacked and hit the enemy's hand. Pan realized that she was once again spinning around like a snake in a frying pan. Mrs. Peng said she was fed up with all this, and one of the girls attacked with a rope to catch her. But the lady noticed this move and immediately cut the rope. She knew that it wasn't Imi's sword technique that irritated her, but this Yang family spear style. She continued to fight, even if it was uncomfortable for her. And then there was that guy sneaking up to attack. Jin continued to attack, not even thinking about slowing down. But Peng was faster and repelled his attack. Penning realized that she could barely block them. En said that she really was incredibly strong. Her hands were already going numb. Peng even noticed all of Yen's attacks, and she found it strange that someone like her could take her attacks. Jin said that his sword was about to fall apart, and she really deserves her glory. But she can't even feel the signs of his presence during the battle. She started to feel that it was getting hard. It hurt her pride, and she felt like she was fighting against 3 of the 9 dragons in a family of phoenixes. And she's not even talking about Jin Ren. The other 2 also have the stamina of dragons and phoenixes. And that guy from the Hua Bo family is at the level of a hired killer. But she is the head of the 8 community. The Red Falcon students didn't waste any time after that, and all pounced on her at once. But Peng wondered why she didn't know that they all had such abilities. But she always knew that she shouldn't use it in front of the head of the Kujang community. The school principal was watching the battle at that moment and saw that it was an unpredictable fight. They were really good. But one of the elders said that, but it is too early to judge who will win. But who would have thought that the Red Falcons team would use such a method? Suddenly a servant came up and told the director that he had brewed some tea for him. Let him try it. The director was delighted and said that this was excellent and would go well with watching this interesting competition. The servant replied, why say such obvious words? And the disciple Peng Ha Ren is truly magnificent, fighting against 3 at the same time. The director said that she would lose soon anyway. To be called a martial artist, you have to go beyond your capabilities. But Ren still wants to be a beautiful woman. That's her limit. The servant asked him if he was too strict. Disciple Peng is hardworking beyond her years, both in her studies and in her training. She is worthy of the title of a woman with a strong character. The director laughed and replied that yes. But in any case, today he was more attracted to the students of the other team. The servant told the director that he knew the master thought so too. At this time, Heron asked Hui who he was looking at so intently. Hui replied that he was on the dragon of the Peak Bear. Heron asked him if maybe they were on bad terms with him. Hui immediately remembered how they said about him that he was only capable of displacing Yeonchun Myung from Shaolin. And indeed, but men's natural abilities are inferior to his. But isn't Yeonchong Meng the son of the guardians of the 2 dragons, the precious disciples of the Shaolin Mirian? People asked. She replied that yes. The Yen family, which leads the guardians of the 2 dragons, has already spent a huge amount of money on the 3rd generation of Shaolin to raise the child to the level of Shaolin disciples. They also heard that the child had natural talent, and the head of the guards of the two dragons had put in a lot of effort to achieve this. But still, how did Myung of the Miryang family become Abbot Cheon's disciple? They told him that if he had such a capable son, he as a father would do anything for him. His mistake, he didn't mean anything like that. But Mo and Hui has a great-grandfather. But even 10 fathers from the guards of the two dragons cannot compare with such a grandfather as the Holy Sword. After his early years, Uncle told him that it was time to enter the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. He and his aunt would support him, so let him get to the very top. He has the honor of the Moan clan on his shoulders, and even 8 generations of their clan, so he shouldn't disgrace them, and he shouldn't lose to men. But his mother told him that his uncle was just talking nonsense. They already knew that he was the best. But did he say goodbye to his father? His mother asked. Xiaowei went straight to him after that and said that he was leaving. But his father didn't respect him and didn't even say goodbye. Hui left without a word and went to his grandfather. He said that he would return after training. Chan told his grandson that yes, that was right. But Hui told his grandfather that perhaps there were opponents he had to defeat. Chan replied that there was no such person, but there was someone to whom he could always turn for guidance, and he would always be by his side. Hui asked, who was that person? Chun told his grandson that it was a man named Moen Hui. He was the one he recognized and valued the most, and also the one who could solve all his problems. Hui thought about Heron's question and replied that no, he had simply heard his name a few times. However, just watching the dragon pikeman wield a sword allowed him to broaden his horizons. Chung Hong said that these were the right words. The dragon pike bearer uses one of the advanced martial arts of Shaolin. Heron was surprised and asked, is that so? Chung Hong told him to think about it himself. Shaolin is based on Buddhist teachings that say to avoid killing. Therefore, naturally punches, palm strikes, foot strikes, as well as the use of breathing practices. Even a spear is not welcome, let alone a sword or blade of a weapon created to cut flesh and bone, to shed blood. It is difficult for such martial arts to become the basis of Shaolin practices. They know that even the symbol of the Shaolin elder is the emerald staff of Buddha. And do they know who he is? Shaolin also has a famous sword art called the 13 drachma sword. The Emerald Buddha sword is next in power to the Emerald Buddha staff. And this became known to everyone as soon as men received the Emerald Sword of Buddha, becoming a disciple of Abbot Heichong. There are also rumors that the Emerald Buddha sword can only be obtained by mastering 5 or more levels of the 13 swords of Drasma. And to learn the 13 drachma swords, one must go through 18 Shaolin obstacles and 72 trainings. It has been more than 4 years since he received this sword. Except when he fights against the third shining sword Hung, he never uses the technique of the 13 swords of Dharma. And so today is a good chance to look at this technique. Suddenly, Yoon said in surprise that the guys from the Red Falcon team were really amazing. They fought so well against opponents with incredible martial arts. Heron asked, is it only Meng and 3 others left? Yoon replied that the master had said something. It is foolish to deal with several outstanding masters without using a team strategy, as everyone will only get in each other's way. And even if they look, this is not even a battle formation. It is probably difficult for the opponents to predict the movements of the Falcons. The team captain took no risks and entered the battle himself with his strong and outstanding techniques. But Men was a little faster and blocked his first attack. But then Un attacked with his own attack, but he dodged it again. But then a girl entered the battle and asked Mina if he could withstand her attack too. Men smiled and replied that it was good. Sun's cloning technique was really amazing. Since when did she have 4 arms? Sun smiled and thanked him for the compliment on the number of her arms. And she can make them even bigger. After these words, the captain and Un joined her in attacking. But suddenly, Men again repelled all their attacks without even breaking a sweat. Men said he heard that the guys on the Red Falcons team are developing amazingly quickly, but she really is incredible. And at this rate, it would be hard to help others, but now he would also give it his all. For the first time, he would use it against someone from the academy, other than the third shining sword. Moen raised his real blade in front of him and said that from now on he was going to push his limits. And when he casts away all his 5 skandhas and lets go of the sword, they will all fall. And he used the 8th part of the 13 drachma swords, the sword of insight. Touching his sword to the ground, the attack was made with it, and the devastation of 5 skadas was applied, and now they will have to go through all the torments. Men said that when he casts away all 5 of his skadas and lets go of the sword, immediately felt an unusual energy, and now he means that he will become a Buddha. Men shouted that they would all fall after this attack. Sun said that they had to block it, but the captain told him that it was dangerous. After his strong attack, the captain shouted that they were finished. He doesn't know what it is, but they definitely won't survive. Ruin immediately asked him what he was doing anyway. If he wanted to live, then he should block. The captain immediately realized that this was a technique used to transmit the voice of an older classmate. Yun realized that they could not cope and shouted to his men to stop. Caught his hand and told her to close her eyes, and nothing to do. Sun was surprised and asked, "What?" But the captain decided to take everything upon himself, and passing next to like a hurricane, he headed to block Men's attack. Suddenly, the captain stopped and felt that he couldn't, and the enemy knew what he wanted to do. Men immediately used the devastation of 5 skads, go through all the torments. But the captain was not afraid and attacked in response with hundreds of arrows flying from the sky. Their attacks were so strong that they even just disappeared into the sky. San saw this and said that she also uses it. But didn't let her do it and simply knocked her out with one blow. And he used a protective barrier and protected himself and the girl. The captain opened his eyes and was surprised to find himself completely fine. But how could this happen, he thought. Looked too and saw that he was not hurt. And he knew that the captain was right. And the captain believed that if he put his life on the line, he could do anything. Also believed that it was a really strong sword technique, but it could be avoided if one distanced oneself from emotions and did not use spiritual energy. The captain believed that he was very strong and considered himself a genius. Men suddenly came up to them and said that he would never have thought that this fight would be so unpredictable. They are really strong. Even though he controlled his power, they both found loopholes. But from now on, there won't be any. But it's surprising that they weren't like this last year. How is that possible? Said that this time they were simply putting their lives on the line. He knew that there were rumors that the Dragon Peak Bearer was the light of martial arts. But what was that look? It gave Mung goosebumps. Men said that they were so determined, then he could enjoy the fight to his heart's content. He could break both wooden swords and people. Surely they would be okay. The captain stood in front of him and said that maybe not. But let him not forget he is surrounded by them, and immediately shouted to and San. The captain saw that nowhere was it written that it wouldn't work, and perhaps he really was stronger than he thought. Answered the captain that he was already on his way, and on the way he apologized to San for what had happened. But men used the 9th part of the 13 swords of the drachma, the sword of faith. The captain realized that he had nowhere to go, and decided to use the unique step technique of the Namgung clan. Step through the darkness, he must block it. Saw that at first glance, the sword technique that the Dragon Peak Bearer was currently using looked light, but he could feel an incredible weight emanating from it. And Gong San would definitely rely on speed. Then he would use the Wudang sword technique, 22 Great Limit Wisdom Sword Attack. But Meng told them that by responding to inflexibility, it gives birth to reason. The captain responded by using the technique of the Sword of Thunder and Lightning, a division magic that will immediately split his attack into 2 parts and send it flying across the sky. But and captain attacked together, and seeing that Men was still worth using the Black Dragon Tail Slash. At that moment, everyone was very surprised by what had happened. But Men did not retreat and continued his attack. The team captain also did not hesitate, and seeing that with his attack the enemy's sword was broken, he put even more effort to break his magnificent sword into small pieces. The fans didn't understand and asked what had happened, and they knew that the Red Falcons team would win. Jiren looked and said that it looked like the Dragon Peak Bearer had a hard time, and she couldn't continue like that either, right? Mrs. Peng realized that the team captain had lost. Why was this talentless idiot so careless? She said she saw something unusual, but aren't they at their limit now? Pan knew that if she overworked herself even more, it would be hard to maintain her current appearance. But if she was careful, she could do it. Peng told them that if she tried any longer, they would all lose. Didn't they think so? But suddenly Hawk came and asked her if she was still on her feet, and now she is the last one left on the battlefield. Tan also said that today was a fruitful day. In the evening, Ryun met them and began asking about the battle. He asked one of the boys how he had missed the enemy. Did they really all want to die? The students, frightened, answered, "Of course not." But suddenly the captain thought, what are they doing now? But Un was exhausted and said that in the end, it will all end like this. All the students were standing on their heads at this time and thinking, didn't they win? They were already on the verge of death after the group match. So why the hell are they doing this now? Rowan got really angry at them and asked why they sounded so offended. Do they want to stand like this all night? Ruin asked them how many times they had fallen to those blue grapes. Was he the only one who understood the horror of this situation? Ruin immediately turned to the Flame Blade mentor and asked, does he also want to say this? This is the result of their training. What does he think of this? Flame Blade began to shout that they were scoundrels. The way they won was very crooked, all because of their ineptitude. And how could they even give in to the students of some snowman? The students thought, what are the teachers talking about? They barely survived. Elle thought that he had defeated several, and Sam understood the same thing, that it was a noble sacrifice. And Hawk was very exhausted, and from helplessness he said that he came to his senses after everything, and now he feels very unwell. Ruin turned to them again and asked if they had heard how they had barely won. Even though it had increased his investment, they shouldn't even think about evading it. From tomorrow on, they will train twice as hard. He immediately turned to those who lost and asked how many times they were beaten, so they will train 3 times as hard. Flame Blade was happy at this moment, and it had been a long time since he had beaten him like that, and he hoped that the snowman would like it. At this time, the blue team told the coach that they were asking for his forgiveness. They were sorry for ruining his reputation and disappointing him. The snowman replied that there was nothing to worry about in defeat. There was no need to despair. They had all fought hard, so they did not have to ask him for forgiveness. And he's fine. Let the boys get up immediately. Men was very surprised that after their defeat, the mentor was still fine. But the snowman did not take out all his anger on the students and used kitchen utensils for this. Hearing the sound of the dishes, they immediately realized that it was definitely not. The mentor was so angry for the first time. Men said that no, they really were wrong. After the group match, he thought a lot about the words of Gong San, the thunder and lightning sword dragon of the Red Falcon team. As he expected, their wooden swords failed, and they could continue without them like him. Namgung told him to do as he wanted. They would fight until they won. Their lives were at stake. Men asked him what life he was talking about. He is a completely different person now, not only in his skills, but also in his character. The same goes for the rest of the Red Falcon team. What happened to them? Namgung asked him if he ever looked for a way to survive while hanging from a cliff on a thin rope during a storm. And he will find out everything when he will risk his life every day. Only he who is ready for death will be able to survive. Men said he enjoyed learning, but during training he kept feeling like something was missing. And thanks to these words, he realized what it was. And he will change from now on. The other students also told the teacher that they would change too, and let the teacher accept their determination. Snowman said that it was good to know that a fresh wind was beginning to blow in the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. He would be watching this determination, and he was not the only one. And now the team of 4 gods will take patronage over a group of 4 promising first-year students. And based on the results of the group match, they will be the group of Heavenly Warriors. They are the second strongest after the group of Heavenly Justice, above which will be the team of Red Falcons. He told the boys that they would soon come to watch them practice. And how did they like that? Team Blue Dragons, are they ready to lead those kids and take this chance to get revenge? The students all immediately answered that yes, and they will definitely take revenge for their mentor's victory. In the evening, the Red Falcons came to the boys and said that they were students from the group of Heavenly Justice assigned to their team of Red Falcons. Chung Hong immediately said that he was a freshman and 25 years old, and asked the guys to take care of him. Meng Hui also introduced himself, but Haeryong asked them in the end, why are they meeting at such a time? Ruin suddenly said that he was also glad to meet them. What was with their faces anyway? And he also introduced himself to his guys. And if it wasn't the right time for them, maybe they should just leave. The students all immediately replied that it was not necessary, and Un, as the smartest one, said that they were simply very happy. Let him quickly pass by and sit down, otherwise they would be very upset. Jiren also suggested that they go to the table. Chung Hong was surprised and asked why they stood up. And Heron had the feeling that if they sat there, a terrible punishment awaited them. Un said it was a misunderstanding. They were just so happy to see them that they jumped out of their seats. The captain also said that everything was correct. They just want them to relax. The guys were surprised and said that they were glad to meet them and hoped that they would get along. Ruin asked them, "Is that how it works?" He didn't think they would be so happy, and he hopes that they will get along well in the future. After 10 hours, the students started getting hit on the head by their older classmate and asked him not to do it. Ruin asked them, "Is this a lie? If he doesn't want to die, he'd better admit that he was just joking." And so he asked for the last time, "Where will their special training take place?" The captain answers that it is Mount Emmy. And it's true, he seriously couldn't do anything about it. Since he was so angry, he asked me to tell Jin Ren that he was thinking about her in his last moments. Ruin told the boy that if he were in his place, he would want to go there. The captain replied that of course not. He felt the same as his classmate. And it's better to die here than to go to that place again. Ruin told him that he might meet Sabu again. Does he feel scared just thinking about it? The captain answered his classmate that he knew that himself. Those cruel tortures still haunt him in nightmares. Ruin asked, "Is that how it is?" and suggested that they come back to this later. Today, first of all, they must deal with this terrible situation. Suddenly in the evening, Flameblade was very surprised and shouted that this was too much. But he also received such a message. But in the morning, the servant told Sabu that he saw how well the master had spent his time on the journey. Sabu came to his house and said that he thought there was someone in the house. After all, he had left everything differently. The servant replied that they had come yesterday to clean, so that he could rest comfortably upon his return. But Sabu replied that no, and that was not the problem. And then he asked the servant who he was. After all, he had not seen him before. The servant replied that the previous person had quit 3 days ago due to health problems. From now on, he would take care of him with all diligence. But Sabu looked into the forest and felt that someone was walking there. At that time, the old servant was walking through the forest and met his man. He said with surprise that the guy had arrived first. And if it wasn't too much trouble, he would also sit down here for a short rest. The servant sat down next to the boy and said that it was amazing that this white tree, hard as stone, had marks from blows. If it weren't for the branches, he would have thought it was a stone pillar. The boy said that's why this tree is called the white stone. During the day, when the sky is blue and clear, like now, it is white. But at night, when the shadows cover it, it turns black, like the other trees. And apparently it is fate that they met here. That is why she wants to give him a gift. And what kind does he like? The servant looked and replied that it was nice to have a choice, and he would take the white stone. What was hidden in the shadows, more than just a white stone, catches the eye. The guy said that among those who, like them, walk these difficult paths and get the opportunity to choose a white bundle, there are practically no others like him. He also heard that the servant was homesick. Didn't he want to go back there and live out the rest of his life in peace? The servant replied that it would be good to retire, but not for him. There was an old man he had met from time to time not long ago. This old man spent all his time in the house, where it seemed he had lived alone for a long time. His eyes were full of longing, and his glass was half full of this pain. If you think about it, he has already lost his family. So if he returns to his native land alone, nothing good will come of it. And even if he can't use martial arts with such a body, it's better to help the guys at least this way. And this time the gift is to his liking. And if he succeeds, he will bring glory to his family, and he will also finally be able to reunite with his family. In the morning, in an unknown province, the old man told the chief that they had just received a report about the changes in the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, and immediately reported it to him. As for the information about Ruin and Changhong that the third prince requested, they are both from impoverished schools. All the information about Ryan suggests that he is friends with the Flameblade, Yun He, and probably trained under him. And should the investigation continue, he asked. The head replied that no. Sometimes you just meet such people, too bright or the opposite. But in any case, they differ from the root, which is what attracts attention. And it seems that the boys are attracted to people similar to him. And even that is sad. The servant said that then they will arrange everything and send it. And should the third prince be informed? The chief replied that he was not sure. Perhaps one of them would be a good opportunity for the baby to grow up. But at this time, Director Su said that he was confident that a change of scenery and a new location would be more effective for the Red Falcon team. Therefore, the training camp for them in the Heavenly Justice Group is moved from Mount Ime to Mount Wudong. And besides, Mentor Flameblade, who had helped the Red Falcon team with their rapid growth, promised to conduct even more intensive training on Mount Wudong. And with his consent, some of the guys from other teams of the Four Gods will be able to join the team of Red Falcons and the group of Heavenly Justice, which will allow them to gain experience. And in general, one person from each team of Four Gods can join. They thank the mentor in advance for such hard work. Suddenly, the Flaming Blade said that the director could rely on him. The snowman got angry at that moment and looked at him strangely. Going outside, Snowman asked the Flame Blade what he was planning to change the training location and what happened to his eye. Maybe it has something to do with a child named Rune. Flame Blade asked him in return, what was he talking about? They told him everything at the meeting, or did his ears freeze? He had been so busy training the kids these past few days that his eye had almost burst. The snowman told him not to talk nonsense. He thinks he's the one who studied the same martial art with him, and he believes such an obvious lie about a broken capillary and only in one eye. It's even suspicious. Flameblade asked Snowman if he doubted him, and since when was he so interested in his eyes? And he just can't accept that his boy's lost to him, so he's asking for it. He hopes that at least he didn't take it out on the kids. The snowman replied that it seemed he was not going to reveal his plans. He did not know what had happened, but he had better be careful. And he's not the only one keeping an eye on that little Rian. That same day, the master told his man that if the matter wasn't entirely within his competence, the man answered the master that the hunting party always carried out orders. They would follow them for 1,000 years. But the gentleman understood that he would not leave him alone. And he remembered how Rian recognized him and asked Hui, "Is this the same old man?" Hui replied that if he meant the head of the noble sword's upper plate, then yes, it was him. Ruin greeted him and said that he hoped the old man remembered they had met before, and now they greeted the noble sword. Ruin looked at him and asked, did he really not remember that he had a bet with them? And since he lost the bet, he should apologize. Ilchui said that he and Cheon's grandson must reach the final of the Three Saint Masters festival and fight. Then he will believe him. But Ruin added to their argument that the old man apologized for everything he said today. Ilchui was surprised and asked again, for what he said? But after thinking about it, he agreed and asked in return that if Ryuan couldn't prove his strength, he would kneel before that boy and them on the alley of heavenly warriors and apologize for his rudeness and lies. When they met, Ruin asked if the noble sword had forgotten the people he had promised to apologize to. All the people heard about everything and asked, what are they now telling the noble sword to apologize to them? Ilchui replied that he never breaks his word, so he is ready to take back his words and apologize. And then they had a misunderstanding, and for that he asked for forgiveness. Ruin said that these words lack sincerity, but it will do for the first time, and he hopes that in the future the master will be more careful. Ilchvi has disgraced himself greatly that day, and he is not doing this because of his bad manners. But for the good of all Murim, he will definitely get proof that he is connected with that devil. After that, they went on a boat trip, but the warrior stood on the deck and tore all the time. He thought, why is this happening to him? He will never be able to wash himself of this his whole life. Yun saw this and said that his brother was suffering so much. He didn't think that he would be so sick. He should give him some water. Ruin replied that he would be fine. Better to give him a slap on the back of the head to stop him from spitting bean pie into that clear river. Heron said they had 3 to 4 more days to sail, and he wants to keep making him faint all that time. And Ruin Kaka is always in his repertoire. Chang'ong couldn't take it anymore and told the boys to stop. There were too many eyes here. He didn't want them to be expelled from the academy for this. And there was something strange here. Earlier, he heard Flameblade say that this boy with the plum blossom, he would go with them because he couldn't stop his treatment. Let him be on small errands for them. But Yun replied that he would try not to interfere with his training. Changhong said that everything is clear with Yun. He has his own circumstances. But why are the others going to train with the Red Falcon team and the Heavenly Justice Group? He also heard that each team of the 4 gods was allowed to go on the trip. But why the third shining sword? Hung suddenly walked up to Hui and asked if he was okay. To think that the 7th divine sword, who was on the same level as him, had lost to a stomach ailment. Hui replied that he didn't know where to look. He was trying to adapt a little. But Ryuan looked at the others and asked why these two were here. He couldn't understand either. They didn't look like they wanted to go to a place like this. So what were they doing here? And why are they being accompanied to training by ships from the Chunya Security Company? For some reason, he feels like it shouldn't be like that. 10 days before this, in a conversation between the Flame Wedge and the guy, he asked why the security. Ruin replied that he bet Flameblade had never moved to a new place with children, nor had he ever managed the budget himself. Why didn't his junior trust him? Flameblade replied that if it were his own money, he would have given it to him already. But it was the money allocated for the training camp, so he couldn't, even if it gave him a black eye under the other eye. And thanks to someone, they go to Mount Wudang. They're not going to eat dirt all the way there, are they? Ruin laughed and asked him why he thought they would eat dirt. And after that, slamming his hand on the table, he said that these were futile worries, and he would see that on the way to Mount Wudang, they would not even get their feet dirty with earth. 10 days later, in the present day, Flameblade looked and said that they really didn't get their feet dirty with dirt. He also remembered that the guy talked about meat 3 times a day. Everything seemed fine. But when he turned around, it seemed to him that not everything was fine. And why did he have to hang out with these security scum, he thought. The guard looked and asked, "What is it?" And why did Mr. Flameblade just look at them? The boys told him to pretend he hadn't noticed. They hadn't eaten that much meat in a long time, so he'd better pretend he hadn't seen it and everything would be fine. Suddenly, the deputy head of the Chongyang Security Company's Nanchang branch, San He, said that this time the escort mission had suddenly come upon them, so they would be able to complete it safely. The head of the Chongyang Security Company's Nanchang branch, Chang He, replied that they had begged. In addition, the central branch had sent a special order. He never thought that this would actually happen. And what kind of reasonable conditions are they? If they run into the bastards from the Black Dragon's den, then there will be trouble. Sang He said that if it were normal, they would just give them some money and sail on quietly. But the proud students of the academy would probably want to solve everything by force. And if anything goes wrong, they'll all get dirty. Still, there's only one thing he likes about this mission. Chang He asked him what he liked. He looked as if he had been bewitched. They should be more careful, but they were all looking at random places with their eyes. Suddenly, one of the guards said that he was sick. His eyes wouldn't obey him at all. The others also said that they couldn't take their eyes off him either, and he couldn't sleep at night. And how can one work here at all? It seems to him that he is about to fall at her feet. After all, she is a heavenly maiden. Suddenly, Ruin came up to her and said that he felt strange. Maybe it meant rain? But even though there was not a cloud in the sky, and just right for fishing, he asked Rin if she liked fishing. Rin turned around and asked him back. Didn't he just say something about rain? Ryun replied that he did, and he even thinks that it will soon come. Red rain. Rin did not understand him and asked what he was talking about. Rin immediately felt the ominous feeling that had been haunting him for some time, growing stronger. Something always happens at times like these, and suddenly before her eyes everything seemed to begin to collapse, and she realized that he was hostile. Ruin told her that she must have a good sense of smell too. Isn't it interesting what kind of bait brought so many fish? The guards looked into the distance and started shouting to the head of the department that they were pirates. Chang He turned around and asked, "Is this the Black Dragon's den?" But somehow they found them quickly. And how many are there? And where is their banner? The guard replied that there were 3 ships, but no flags. And the strange thing is that they were still far away, but some of them just jumped into the water. Chang He listened and thought about it and asked, "Maybe they were newcomers," Sang He asked in response. "Isn't it too strange? What if the 3 ships are used as a distraction?" Chang He asked his ally if he thought it was a sneak attack. The Red Falcon captain suddenly said that they were ready to fight back. But Jern replied that it was unknown where they would attack from, so they would look in all directions. Un said that he would inform the others as well. Ryun was resting at the time and wasn't even worried. He said that the area was full of stupid bandits and jump out of the water in broad daylight to become a perfect target in the sun's rays. Suddenly, everything changed, and the pirates jumped out of the water to attack the ships. The captain shouted to all his men to be careful. Hung asked Hui if he was okay. The boy replied that everything was fine, he could fight. Mrs. Peng realized that she needed to defend herself, and using her sword technique, removed all the pirates from the ship. Ruin didn't pay attention to this and said, "Aren't they idiots? And it's just small fry." But Rin didn't take her gaze away and noticed something. At that moment, a man wearing a mask came up onto the deck. The stranger pulled out his knife and lunged at Jiren. But the girl was faster and pierced him with her sword. But suddenly Rin noticed that it was already late, and she saw that the mercenary was heading towards the girl Jiren. But the captain was fighting at that moment and was glad that he managed to block this attack. But Jiren was covered in the enemy's blood at that moment. But the knife in the mercenary's hands was shining and slowly approaching the girl's head. The captain noticed this and ran to save his love. He realized that he would not be able to catch up and save her. But everything changed the moment Ryun immediately came up and grabbed the knife with his bare hands. But Ruin didn't leave the mercenary a chance. Having protected his student, he immediately cut off the enemy's head. But Jiren was out of her mind from the blood that was on her body. She even let go of her sword from her hands out of fear. Ruin noticed this and shouted at her to come to her senses. But seeing that she was not paying attention, he slapped her. Ruin asked her, "Did she want to die?" And when she wields a sword, her heart should be like ice until her head flies off her shoulders. If she can't master the basics, why bother learning swordsmanship? She wants to die because of her confusion. The captain didn't even like it and tried to defend her. But Un stopped him and told him to calm down. And frankly speaking, in that situation, if it weren't for his senior classmate, he wouldn't have been able to save Jiren. So it would be better for him to calm down first. There is no need to worry about the senior classmate. And the teacher Flameblade does not know about their connection with the senior classmate. At that moment, the Flameblade thought that he had never hit a girl in the face. And what did this devil eat to grow up like this? And Un also said that there was an ice phoenix here that the senior classmate was so concerned about, and many others were looking at them. And his action has already caused a wave of condemnation. It was so radical that even his friends find it hard to accept. Un told him to take a look. Jiren quickly came to her senses. And didn't he feel like the senior classmate, having read the atmosphere, had softened a little? Ruin told her that she was covered in blood, and here was her sword, which she had let go of after the murder, and he told her to go and wash herself. Jiren took off the bracelets from her hands and asked her classmate if she should go now. Ruin replied that she did and asked when else she would have time. There are still plenty of cheeky fish here. Just let her take a look. This time she must not lose her sword. Jiren looked and said that they were enemies. Ruin said that was right and pushed her into the water to kill them all. Ruin said he would give her a push, and she should wash herself well and catch more fish. Jiren immediately went into the water with her sword in hand and got to work. The captain was very scared for her and shouted after her. He immediately took off the bracelets from his hands and said that he was coming for her. But Ruin was surprised and said, how did he know that he had to follow? Then he asked the others, why were they all stuck like that? Let them gather immediately. Just stand and watch as their two friends fight hard? El immediately started to take off his bracelets and replied that of course not. Un also said that he was coming too. Mrs. Peng was surprised and wondered why the Red Falcon team was running forward like crazy. And why were they in such a hurry to do what some newbie told them? Hung said at this point that his friend's recklessness was beyond imagination. But the submissive reaction of the Red Falcon team was even stranger. Does he not know what is going on here? Suddenly, Flameblade turned to the student and said that he had gone crazy. Was he out of his mind to do such things? Rowan asked him why he was so worried. No need to worry, he's perfectly fine. Flameblade asked who should be worried about who right now? He was worried about literally throwing his guys overboard. He never taught them how to fight underwater. What if something happened to them? Ruin replied that they were his senior comrades from the Red Falcons team. They are great at fishing. Everything will be fine. The teacher is overprotective. Heron exhaled at this moment and said, what a blessing that the teacher Flameblade didn't make a well-fried kebab out of their crazy. But where is he going? Is brother Chang Hong going to abandon them? Chang Hong replied that there was no escape. He wanted to grab this crazy guy and follow him. And he asked Yun if he could swim. Yun replied that it wasn't that he couldn't, but fighting enemies in the water was a different matter. Run suddenly asked, is even his Ren shocked by all this? It's very offensive, and asked Yun, is he a good swimmer? Yun was frightened and replied that now that he thought about it, he couldn't even remember how to swim. Ruin grabbed him and said that they would now refresh his memories through practice. He was thinking about this. He wouldn't smell the plum blossom in the water, would he? And he threw it straight into the water along with the sword. The commander told everyone to be on guard and prepare for an ambush. The guard asked in surprise, How many enemies are there who are ready to die? The guys replied that if it weren't for the students of the Celestial Warriors Academy, they wouldn't have gotten away with so little bloodshed. San He was beside himself with this and said that even their guys, who had a lot of battle experience, would not be able to stand up to such an enemy, and even underwater. And what should he tell the academy now if there were casualties among their students? Chang He replied that this was also a problem, but were these guys really pirates? They were too cold-blooded for bandits. It was strange. At this time, Chang Hong approached the enemy's body and felt the pain technique dull the sensation of pain. And now he knows that they are not pirates. After all, pirates could not stay underwater for so long and attack. But Heron heard this and said that since this is a pain technique, then it turns out that they are hired killers. And since they don't intend to rob them, he wonders if they intend to die with them. Chung Hong replied that he would say that he did not know why they decided to attack the ship, but they were all professional killers. Heron was surprised and asked him how he came to this conclusion. Chung He also heard and asked them if they were professional killers. And it's not like their security company hasn't encountered assassins, but they've never seen them use pain techniques. So how did that old man know about it? Heron replied, as strange as it may sound, he is not an old man, but a 25-year-old freshman. And although it is hard to believe, despite his young age, he is well versed in such things as pain techniques. Chung Hong blushed at this point and told his friend that it would have been better if he had just kept quiet. Chung Hong said that he looks like that because he ate the wrong medicine when he was a child. That's why he understands such things. For the pain technique, you also need to take a certain healing water. Chang He asked in surprise, healing water? And in his mind, he had this feeling that this 25-year-old freshman has been in the martial arts world for 20 years. The Heavenly Warrior Academy is really great. Chung Hong continued to tell them what is called a pain technique pill. It is a special mixture of poisons and herbs that dull pain and improve reflexes. Although it reduces lifespan, it is sometimes used by professional assassins. At a certain stage, they may not only ignore the pain, but may even fight back and deliver the finishing blow after their throat has been cut or their heart stabbed. And the killers deal the final blow to the enemy and die with him. And if they die, having lost a lot of blood, then it gives off a smell similar to the smell of resin. That is exactly what emanated from the corpse. Hung asked, so they are definitely not pirates. But who do they want to kill? Hui asked the security bureau. Maybe they have some guesses. Sang He replied that no. Although their company had risen rapidly, there was no person or organization that held a grudge against them so much that they wanted to kill them. Chang He also said that even if the target was one of them, they would immediately rush at him. But there is no one who would hire such expensive assassins for their sake. But Madame Peng showed that in any case, as long as they were together, they would not achieve their goal. And before they parted ways at Mount Wudang, she would send a message to the academy to help them return safely. For now, they just needed to focus on defense. Sang He replied that since she said so, it was encouraging. And as she said, the best thing they could do now was focus on defense. Suddenly, Peng approached the boy and asked, isn't she Chang Hong's disciple? And if she understood correctly, the mercenaries were targeting one of their disciples? Chang Hong replied that he hadn't said that. Peng asked, then who else could a bunch of cruel mercenaries target? And now he says he was able to recognize professional killers, but did not understand their goal. Hung replied that judging by the reaction of the accompanying company, they could not be their target. So probably, as Miss Peng said, one of them is the target. Mrs. Peng replied that it was correct. She asked Chang Hong who he thought the Heavenly Justice Group was, their target. Hyun asked in surprise, from the Heavenly Justice Group? How did she come to this in the first place? Chung Hong thought about it and said that he was only a freshman. The fact that she asked him that so suddenly was disconcerting. He was very surprised at that moment because she immediately figured it out. And the director's daughter really is amazing. Pan replied that the teams of the four gods had come out more than once or twice, but this was the first time something like this had happened. Naturally, this time it must be somehow connected with the new group of Heavenly Justice. Disciple Yun is following them unofficially, so he cannot be the target of the planned ambush. And also, if the target was the Flame Blade mentor, they wouldn't have used such a method. Disciple Moen Hui seems to know nothing about the current situation, and of the remaining members of the Heavenly Justice Group, only Disciple Chung Hong can be seriously discussed. So she asked him who the real target was. Chung Hong replied that if it came to that, it was definitely not him to begin with. He has no famous name, no enemies who would attack like that. And this comrade is also smart. And unlike one fool, he is also capable of a serious conversation. Maybe there is someone who holds a grudge against him? Chung Hong knew he really wanted to ask that. And the third prince was here. So why the hell did they attack? Heron suddenly laughed and asked, "At him?" He immediately thought about who could hold a grudge against him. He immediately remembered how they shouted at him that he was shameless. And did he know how many people his brother had killed? How dare he come here after that? And it doesn't matter, even the younger brother and the elder one, that their parents make him furious. And even tearing him apart is not enough to take revenge. Heron said that since childhood, there had been quite a few people who wanted to get rid of him. But if you think about it, none of them would send mercenaries now. Mrs. Peng asked him if he was joking in this situation. Chung Hung realized at that moment that the worst thing was that this was not a joke at all. Hui suddenly said that in that case, there was a high probability that it was because of him or his family. For everyone's safety, it would be better for him to leave. Mrs. Peng asked him, "What kind of nonsense is this?" Finding out who the target was necessary in order to properly organize the defense, not to draw such conclusions. Hung also said that he agreed. Besides, why does he think it's because of him? There's another person in the Heavenly Justice Group, and this man is a master of turning people against himself. And he also cannot understand how he got the members of the Red Falcons team to speak out. Ms. Peng also said that this was true. After all, even masters without special training prefer to avoid underwater battles. But why did the Red Falcon team members jump into the water like that? At that moment, Yun fought the mercenary and finished him off underwater. He was surprised that he was able to kill a man, and thanks to that, he survived, and fortunately, he did not lose consciousness using his sword technique. Suddenly, Yun felt someone attacking him from behind. He suddenly froze and realized that he could not fight any longer. He realized that due to the lack of plum blossom scent, he was able to block 1 to 2 opponents by a lucky chance. But he can't do anything else in this suspended state, and this time he will die, and now he misses his master. And the senior classmates weren't so bad either. The plum blossom, he wishes to see the plum blossoms on Mount Huasan again. Suddenly he heard something and asked what that sound was. Opening his eyes, he saw that someone had attacked the mercenary with a date, and it hit him right in the hand. Yun immediately realized that Namgung had saved him, and Un was there too. They did it to save their comrade. Yun looked at them and saw how they were trying to tell him something. But at that moment, he didn't understand anything. But he thanked them for such an act. He now thinks that the guys from the Red Falcons team are really cool, and he feels like he's about to faint. After all, he had been in the water for so long without the opportunity to breathe. But the guys look like mythical creatures that have been living underwater for a long time. And that date, really cool. At that moment, Ruin was on the boat eating dates. Rin saw him eating and asked if dates were tasty. Ruin replied that yes, they were a great nutritional supplement. Dates were fresh and good for the body. This food will make her natural beauty overflow. Would Miss Rin like to try it? Rin replied that she would refuse. But she had a question. He had already thrown dates into the water several times. Did he really attack the enemy with a dodoi? Rin thought that he attacked the enemy underwater, not with an iron, but with a fresh date. It is almost impossible. Only if he has undergone special training and his level is beyond imagination. And the reaction of the Red Falcons team members, who immediately dove into the water following his words. The students at that moment considered him a devil, and now he wants the sea to become their grave. This is too much. Even Hawk threatened that he would take revenge on him as soon as he gained strength, and definitely as it will be next time. Ruin knew they were all tense and hurt, but there was no fear of death. It wouldn't have been possible if they didn't trust him. And though how would the Red Falcon's crew know about his real abilities? These are just his guesses. But suddenly someone from the deck said that something had surfaced. It was a corpse. The guards said that these were a young lady and gentleman who had recently jumped into the water. The others told him to take a closer look. And as he saw, there were 2 guys. And it looks like that little guy from the Huashan faction had fainted. But suddenly he started hitting Yun in the face to bring him to his senses. The guards were surprised and asked why he suddenly started hitting the guy. And after that, Yun came to his senses. And now one of them is going under again. And if you think about it, the rest of the guys have been under for a long time. But how do they stand it? Real masters. But Yun is on the water at this moment and is spitting water from his body. The guard asked, "Is he not going to get out? And is the boy really holding his breath to dive again?" Yun, without thinking twice, immediately dove under the water. The guard saw this and said that he dove, and after he lost consciousness. And it turns out that the boy is still a brave man. Hung looked and asked, "Is this Yun?" And it seems he is not familiar with underwater combat techniques, but despite his gentle appearance, his spirit is strong. Hui looked at all this and said that he should help them too, but his body immediately reacted and began to vomit. Changhong suddenly asked, "Should I help them? In his condition? Besides, if the target is the Heavenly Justice Group, it would be better for the four of them to stay here. And it was probably a good thing that their ruin didn't jump in." Heron replied that if he had jumped, he would have followed him. Rin suddenly said that the Red Falcon team and Mr. Yun jumped into the water. Isn't he going to join in and help them? Ruin replied that the Red Falcon team has habits, so he wants to maintain their reputation. Besides, the weather is sunny, and he wants to go fishing from here. After all, there are plenty of fish here. Ruan immediately attacked the enemies who were under the water with dates. Rin noticed at that moment that something sparkled in the water, but it was impossible to see, and it was some kind of hidden weapon. And come to think of it, she used something like that too. She didn't have any martial arts at the time, so she didn't notice it, but it seemed to be some kind of slashing sword. Rin now realized that he was using a slashing sword like her, but she wasn't sure if the iron date could be used as a slashing sword in water. And she does it at a speed that even she can't quite match, and it really can be done. The mercenary at this moment did not understand how this happened. No matter how strong the students of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors were, they were in the water. And how can they move so dexterously and smoothly underwater? They even have their own way of communicating. And it's also lucky that there are idiots among them. A woman wouldn't have enough strength in the water to swing such a huge thing properly, but the student swung her sticks and easily knocked out the enemy with one blow. The mercenary was greatly surprised by her monstrous strength. And who are they anyway? How do they make a living? What have they learned to do? He still didn't understand who these crazy girls were. And the students of the Heavenly Warriors Academy, what kind of training did they go through? The mercenary realized that they had no information that they were so good. We need to quickly deal with at least one, get out of here, and hand them over to the people. But at that moment, there is a student behind him who was ready to attack him. The mercenary did not understand because he saw blood, and his eyes close. Hack showed his ally with his hand that he used a great technique. In the water or on land, he kills all the rats without them even noticing. Un saw something before his eyes, like someone attacking the mercenary. He thought, it wasn't him, was it? And it was definitely some kind of scary flash. The captain asked the others if they had dealt with the guys who had tried to puncture the ship. The enemies seemed to disappear too easily. He understood that although the valley in the Amy Mountain was like hell, it seemed that the training there had made them stronger. The captain gave the signal to his men and said it was time to go up. At that moment, Ruin looked into the water and waited for them to swim up. Rin looked at his movements again and asked, "Was that really a slashing sword just now?" Ruin replied that it was something like that. Today's fishing was almost over. The red rain was coming soon, so she should get ready to dry her clothes. Rin asked again, "Red rain?" Suddenly, the guards shouted that the guys from the Academy of Heavenly Warriors were rising. Everyone was safe and sound. Sang-hee said that it was interesting how they fought underwater. There were no wounded among them. Chong-hee replied that the students of the Heavenly Warrior Academy were simply magnificent. The guards suddenly approached them and told the chief and deputy that they were being attacked by 3 pirate ships at once. There were quite a few enemies left. The chief was surprised again and said that pirates were rushing towards them and let them immediately prepare for battle. San-hee asked, "Why are these psychos doing this?" Chongyang Security Company. Let them immediately protect the passengers at the cost of their lives. But before he could finish speaking, the ship burst into flames behind him. He immediately shouted that anyone who didn't want to die should get out of the way. The guard said right away that this was the famous mentor, the flaming blade. Although it is a blade technique, for some reason the name includes the word sword, and it is called the flaming energy of the sword. And now he might burn everyone alive. The guard got really scared and asked if he was going to burn them too. What's going on here? Why is he suddenly so angry? Flameblade got really angry and showed his powers in action. Flameblade immediately remembered how Ryun said that Quan He was a name. Its value had dropped a bit recently. If this continues, he will cancel the policy of preferential treatment for the student with experience. And then the guys from the Red Falcons team will find out that they have a younger classmate. And he is thinking about it. But he will look at the situation a little more and decide all this. Quan He got very angry and said that he would wipe everyone out in the blink of an eye. And he started to release an attack with a flaming sword. Everyone was shocked by this and started screaming in fear. The flaming blade launched an attack straight into the enemy boat and burned it to ashes. San-hee said that there really were no more enemies left. And fortunately, the crew was not hurt and the boat did not sink. But to sail down the river with a boat in such a state, Chung-hee said that they could damage the cargo, and it was unknown when those guys would show up again. Sanny turned to the team and said that from now on, they would be moving on land. Ruin pointed and asked, "Here? It would be a bit difficult. They don't have any carts or horses. Besides, their mentor Flameblade said that they would reach Mount Wudong without getting their feet dirty, so they definitely couldn't walk." Quan was angry at this point and knew that he had promised him, but if he said that, he would look like a weirdo. Quan thought about it and said he didn't care. San-hee laughed and said that fortunately there was thick vegetation here, so the road wasn't dusty. He would even say it was flowery. Chung-hee also said that since things had turned out this way, they would have to be patient for a while. If they crossed the mountain, they would be able to find horses in 2 to 3 days. On the second day, Ruin grabbed one man and told the others to drop their weapons if they wanted to save the man's life. If they want to save their leader, let them bring a ransom. And this is a completely reasonable demand. And for the record, if this situation drags on, his hand may tremble. So they better bring the ransom quickly to ease his hand. Hui and Hung were surprised and did not understand why he was doing this. Mrs. Pan asked what this lunatic was doing. Rin replied that it looked like he had taken a hostage. But Yun said it wasn't exactly a hostage. Heron replied that he thought it was usually bad guys like bandits who took hostages, not became them. Chung Hong looked and said that it was true. But for some reason, he felt like they were the bad guys in this situation. All the bandits gathered and said that this was the leader, and they asked Ruin how he dared to touch him, and what happened anyway. Heaven's Blade noticed that even the bandits couldn't do anything against him. He thought that Ryuan was a born devil. And besides, his skill looks like he's used it a bunch of times already. His students also looked at it with surprise and didn't understand what he was doing. But suddenly the elder robber came up and said that he was ashamed. But the chief told him to pretend that he had not seen anything. The leader asked Ryan if he was afraid of the consequences. After all, if he lay down, the guy thinks that his guys who are here now, or the 72 bandits from the Green Forest gang, will leave them alone. And if he doesn't let him go now, it will be the end of them all. Ruin started laughing and asked the chieftain if he was sure about this. Ruin immediately turned to the guys from the Red Falcon team and said that this guy asked if they were afraid of the consequences. And what did they think about his words? The captain began to laugh and replied that no way. Un also said that they had broken the tiger bone den and the dragon bone den. And to threaten them with such a ridiculous number? There are much fewer of them than they laid down that time. The leader asked in surprise, "The den of tiger bones and dragon bones?" He can't believe that they destroyed the dens of tiger bones and dragon bones of the Green Forest gang. Sang-hee told the chief that he had heard something like that when he thought about it. The chief replied that he had. When they asked for an escort from the Chongyang Security Company, he wondered, are the rumors about the Red Falcon team from the Sky Warrior Academy exaggerated? But from the current situation, it seems that it is all true. The eldest of the bandits got scared and said that they were a team of Red Falcons from the Sky Warriors. And now they need to get out of here before things get worse. Ruin asked the enemies where they were going. He immediately told Heron to fix that idiot's face a little. Heron listened to the order and flew into it straight with both feet. The bandit didn't even have time to do anything before he got hit on the head. Hung was surprised and thought it was clever and neat. He felt that he was a very unusual guy, but he did not expect such skills. Chung Hung also thought that he didn't go to the Three Saint Masters Festival to avoid showing off, but now he's so happy. But Mrs. Peng at this moment didn't even understand why Heron was also acting like a psycho. These two were birds of a feather. Heron told Ruin that he had captured him and what to do next. Kill the others as a warning? or use him as a hostage too? The elder wondered after that, why did this guy grab him? Ryun answered him that of course it was the latter. And as they say, the more the better. If you think like bandits, then isn't it better to bargain for ransom when he has two hostages? Ruin began listing how failure to cooperate would make his hand waver. But if they were reasonable and gave half of what they had, he would be lenient. They also need to live on something, so he uses the remaining money honestly. The bandits thought, what kind of nonsense is this? Stop pretending to be kind, demon. The bandits started looking in their pockets and thinking, what should they do now? And one of them came today with a lot of money, and we won't have to give him half of our clothes. Ruin asked them, are they kidding? Did he say to give half of what they had with them? For the lives of these two, he demanded half of all the property in the den. Mrs. Peng thought he was crazy, and it turns out he's worse than any robber. But the Flaming Blade noticed that he was surprisingly lenient with the bandits. He thought the guy would rip their hair out of their asses and make them buy it. The bandits asked him again, half of all the property? At that moment, someone was sitting in the bushes and asked the captain, shouldn't they help them? The captain of the hunter squad from the talent pavilion of the Celestial Warrior Academy, Ranger Doc Go, asked which one of them he was talking about. About the students who suddenly became bandits? Or about the bandits from the Green Forest gang? The guy thought at that moment, why did he think for a minute that he should help the bandits? It's just somehow even a pity to look at them. Doc Go said that until the target of surveillance crosses the line, their first priority is surveillance. Let him remember that. And judging by what happened on the river, the bandits were definitely targeting the boys' lives. A bandit ambush. But how were they connected at all, he wondered. Second Army of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. Sahan said that the Hidden Soul Hall is, after all, part of the elite of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. But who would have thought that the hidden dragon claws that were under the control of the hall would drown because of the guys from the Academy of Heavenly Warriors? He doesn't even know if the Hidden Soul Hall can handle the next move. Hidden Soul Hall leader Young Myung said that because of his vile plans, he doubts their guys' abilities. And if because of his half-baked strategy, the Hall of the Hidden Soul loses another squad, he won't let it go unnoticed. Sahan replied that there was no need to worry. This time the plan was prepared with special care. Let it take 5 days to get to Mount Wudang, and there just nearby is the prison of the Heavenly Demon. And there he is, the one who killed nearly 100 rising stars of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion in the past. The bloody blade, Kal Hebong. I got angry and asked him, is he crazy? This is too dangerous. Why not just end it? Sahan replied that this was why the chief was always such a loser. Even if there were any problems, they would simply say that he ran away and did it of his own free will. I asked the guy if he had forgotten what family he was from. Sakan replied that of course not. He clearly remembers that he is the eldest of the two sons of the current leader of the Dark Alliance, and the grandson of the Blade of Darkness and the God of War Blade Lord Kaljun Hek. And isn't that why his value is so great? If he kills the disciples of the Heavenly Warrior Academy, a wave of chaos will sweep over the martial arts world. Haibon felt angry at this moment, and his nails began to scratch his face out of intense irritation. But there was a priest next to him, who used a strong aura to awaken the monster from its cage. The elder approached the cage where the bloody blade Haibon was sitting. He looked at the steam that the priest released and showed him a photo of his target. Chief Meng was still surprised and asked the boy that he would make him attack them with the soul summoning technique. Does he want to subjugate and control the soul of a madman? He himself is out of his mind. Not even talking about the consequences, he does not think that this is even possible. Sahan smiled and asked, is it impossible? On the contrary, it is even easier to control a madman. And since the soul summoning technique is taken up by those who are called the twin killers of heaven and earth, then nothing is impossible. And now these two should have arrived. Men said that the twins are the killers of heaven and earth. He is talking about the sword of the spell and the blade of the Lord of the Underworld. He has come this far because he is not acting alone. Is the Grand Prince aware of all this? The Great Prince received the information at this moment and looked at all the guys. One of them was the successor of the Holy Sword. The second was a nameless newcomer, the winner of the Holy Masters Festival. After them came the precious daughter of the head of the Heavenly Alliance and the apprentice of the Queen of Swords. And after her came the only daughter of the director of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors and the granddaughter of the Holy Blade. But the prince stopped at a photograph of Heron and said that no matter where you look, they are in for a rivalry between brothers. Heron was asking at this point, was it necessary to go so far? Ruin asked, is there any problem? Heron replied that this was some new kind of comfort and it was amazing, but maybe dignity, conscience, or morality came into play in him. But Yun came up to them and told them to listen, and he was completely uncomfortable. But he couldn't come down either. Ruin asked, why not? The guy next to him seemed pretty damn comfortable. Why couldn't they enjoy this comfortable ride together? Yun looked and replied that he thought that brother Chung Hong was fainting. In any case, how could he enjoy comfort when the senior disciples had to do this? But everything was much more complicated. The cart with profit was pulled by the students on their own feet. On the way, Jiren suddenly told Sun to go faster. If they put a log under it, the cart would roll more smoothly. Sun replied that she herself would soon lie down here, and he told Group 3 to make a replacement. The rest, having heard that the third group had to change, began to panic and did not want to do it. Ruin told his friends if they saw that although they lacked horses, the senior disciples said that they would train with all their might, just as Master Flameblade had taught them. And they should help with this. Isn't it so, Mentor Flaming Blade? The teacher did not deny it and answered that yes. But San He said that if he just gave them their horses now, it would be awkward. But later, his conscience would bother him. Chang He replied that if they could go out to sea again, it would be a great success. But when the wind died down, they were already in such a situation. Earlier, Chang He asked the boy if he could forgive them so that they could end here. Let him think about the consequences if this continues. But Sang He told Mr. Ryan to think about the face of their Chongyang security company. They would repay them when they returned. Ruin said that then today he would make sure that no one dared to lay a finger on the Chongyang security company here from now on. The leader of the bandits replied that of course, and he swears on his name that no one will touch them. Ruin decided everything and said that he would go then, but would take payment for his valuable instruction. If anyone was unhappy with this, let them say so. San He said on the way that even with their investment, there was not enough money to buy horses. But even though there aren't enough horses, they still pull their load. But why? Chung He replied that they would be there soon. So just let him shut up. Ruin suddenly asked the guys from the Red Falcons team how things were down there. Should they go down? Hung said at this point that he thought they were just going on a tour. But he saw such a rare scene. But why isn't he with his friends? Hui replied that he did not understand them. Mrs. Peng said that he had even robbed bandits, but he traveled by cart and ate from morning to night. But what's going on in that crazy Ruin's head? Rin replied that she would like to know too. Mrs. Pan thought that Rin was very strange and probably wanted to know about Ryun too. And this is an ice phoenix who is rumored to avoid all men except her father. Mrs. Peng said that she thought he was a weirdo and a scoundrel. In any case, it looks like they have already arrived at their destination. One of the students said that it looked like they were there. Let them drop those damn logs. Heron immediately turned to Brother Chang Hong and told him to stand up. But Ryun replied that they say that people lose sleep as they get older. So why does he fall asleep right away? Chung Hong opened his eyes and replied that he was 25. Hearing these words himself, he said that they had finally arrived, and he had heard that young warriors were gathering on Mount Wudong. Surely it would be easier there than now. But the captain told him that great hopes could lead to great disappointment. In their experience, it was better to throw such thoughts out of your head and be as careful as possible. Un also said that the captain is right, and especially when they are with an older classmate, and you never know what might happen. 4 days later, Ruin stood at the edge of the mountain and said that it was a rather high rock that pierced a sea of clouds. Ruin suddenly asked, then where should he fall? Without thinking long about the decision, he jumped from the mountain. After that, the guys immediately chased after him. The guy looked down from the cliff and said that he really didn't see him. The squad leader asked Doc Go, did he really jump? The guy replied that Ruin had a rather strange attitude toward his life, although you couldn't tell from looking at him. Doc Go said that no matter what he was like, once he jumped off such a cliff, there would only be one result. The guy asked if they could find a way around and look for the body below. Go replied that they would leave this building and let the others retreat. Go remembered that the noble sword had ordered that the strike can be monitored and stopped if it caused harm to the Alliance. And now, even if he survived, it will be difficult for him to do anything. So you can leave a couple of people to observe and let the rest go. But Director Su said that since the noble sword gave such an order, he would pretend not to know about it. But his priority is to protect children, and resolving the problems they cause is secondary. Go understood that it would be more correct to carry out the director's order, disguised as a request. And the children were followed by suspicious individuals. But they definitely won't break into the territory of the Wuding faction. It would be necessary to clean everything up here and conduct a thorough investigation. Go told the 2nd to 4th Squad to rest. The mountain and water groups would return to the academy to report after looking after the Chongyang Security Company. The 1st Squad will remain here and look after the team of Red Falcons. The remaining 2 will go in search of the body and report the results via messenger birds. A group of boys came down from the mountain and the leader gave them the order to find the body. And if they found out that he was not dead, they should destroy it immediately. Ruin came down from the mountain and thought, where should he go next? But he fell from the mountain. All that was left was to find his destiny. 4 days ago, a girl said that there are Yuntai Peak and Zixiao Peak in Wudong, and they also say that there might be some secrets or treasures in the Great Boundary Cave and Great Boundary Cliff. And if you look at it that way, there are an awful lot of legends, and perhaps there are even spiritual beasts or herbs of immortality. Heron laughed and replied that that was why she had gone after them when the chance came. But then, welcome to the family. Seoul said that was correct. So when the Chongyang Security Company announced that they were recruiting people to return the convoy, she immediately applied. If not now, when else would she get to visit Wudong Mountain? Yun replied that it was true that deep in the Wuding Mountains one could encounter destiny and real miracles. However, most of these things need to be in places that are difficult for people to reach. Mrs. Peng asked, is that the problem now? The problem is why Miss Saul, who should be returning with the Chongyang people, is here. Seoul told her that they had some big troubles on the way, right? Ren's sister was in closed training, so naturally she had to protect Ren's sister. Ren said that it would most likely be the other way around, and that she would hardly be able to protect her. Saul hugged her sister and said that in any case, she had already received permission from the Flameblade's mentor. And the only condition for training is to eat and sleep next to Sister Rin. Flameblade thought that since the girl was being watched by someone like a treacherous devil, she would be safer next to a maid or a friend. Flameblade told Seoul that he agreed, but that she was not to leave her side for a single step. Seoul said that she was so happy. Now she could explore everything here to her heart's content. Heron laughed and replied that it would be interesting. But if it was about fate and miracles, it would not be so easy to find them. Chung Hong said that most likely, some of the Wudong disciples had already searched everything here. But Hung said he was just a disciple from a lay family, so he hadn't been everywhere. It's amazing how much people believe in miracles that only happen in fairy tales. Saul told him that it wouldn't hurt to look around. Does anyone really believe in such things? 4 days later, in the present day, Ruin entered the cave and said that there was nothing useful here. But at the other end of the cave, he came out into the river, where everything was green and there were no human voices. Ruin looked around and said that there was nothing either. Why then was it necessary to flood everything with water, he thought. But he denied everything, because people don't say that in order to meet destiny, you have to fall off a cliff. But suddenly he smelled the smell of food, which immediately interested him. He crept up and saw that the chief of Meng was cooking meat, and the smell spread throughout the forest. Chief Meng suddenly started laughing and asked the boy if he had seen it, but Ruin suddenly grabbed his chest and seemed to be trying to rip out his heart. Men asked the guy what was wrong with him. Was he really hurt? Ruin replied that he wanted meat so much that his stomach was twisted. Men said that he was clutching his heart, not his stomach. What a strange young man. Ruin replied that no, he was completely normal, and now there is a master in front of him. The temperature is perfect, and nothing is burnt. As soon as he smelled it, he knew that this is what he needed. I told the guy that he must have a keen eye, and I asked the guy what he was doing there. Ruin picked the tree and replied that it was nothing special. He was just practicing making tools to take care of it. And it would be terrible if he moved and suffered from stomach pain, wouldn't it? So he would help the master. Men laughed and replied that he couldn't help but admire his ingenuity. And very well, if he followed the rules, he would be happy to share the recipe. Ruin asked, what are these rules? He hopes they are not complicated or confusing. I replied that there was only one rule. Keep it all a secret, because the guys from this mountain hate it when he does that. Ruin asked, then he just can't snitch on him? And if he refuses, will he kill him then? Men told him that then he definitely wouldn't be able to tell. And if you think about it, you couldn't come up with a better way. So does the guy want to think about it? Ruin told him not to worry, he was not a chatterbox. He would definitely keep everything a secret since the chef's meat was at stake, and he hadn't seen anything like that for 2 days. Men listened and said that then the guy was now an accomplice. But suddenly Ruin picked up the chopsticks and said that he shared. Ruin did everything and said that he divided the legs fairly. Mung replied that he didn't know what kind of standards of fairness he had, but wasn't it amazing? He cut the meat as if he had been doing it for 100 years. Ruin said that he was really awesome. And Grandpa had a keen eye too, he noticed. I heard when the guy called him Grandpa and started laughing and couldn't stop. And he said that it was funny what he called him. He really likes it. Soon, while eating, Ruin asked if the faction already had 6 books with legends about this area, but he wrote them all himself. I told the guy that he was talking as if he was looking for all these treasures himself. How could you possibly return to such nonsense? And in fact, 3 objects had already been found here, thanks to which everything around here was carefully checked. Even the claws of birds that flew in for a short time were examined. But now no one else comes here, so he can fry and eat meat in peace. Ryan asked, so he is not some kind of sage hermit? But then who is he? Mung replied that he was just an old horse-faced Taoist who was recognized even by elders. People called him the son of the Black Sword and the son of the Jade Void, but in fact he had done nothing of the sort. Ruin listened and wished him luck, and it was a pity there was no drink. Since he was hunting like that, he could have taken care of the wine, there in the leather bag or the deer antler. Men laughed and said that I knew it, he was the perfect guy. And as the guy had already guessed, he had everything prepared. Ruin saw the bottle and said he knew he was onto something. And the old man was nothing like that boring monk from Wudong. Men was surprised and asked him who the guy was talking about. Ruin replied that there was a Taoist who came to their training camp, and it seems he was some kind of son of infinity himself, a sage of the Black Spirit, and they say he is quite famous. He is so punctual and precise that his walking can be used instead of a clock. After all, the length of his step, the speed of his gait, and the schedule of his affairs are always the same. And the Black Spirit mentor, after his afternoon walk, stepped onto the threshold of the Elena Martial Arts Gate. It's already time. And he's very particular about precision, so they should pay attention. He doesn't tolerate anything that's not on schedule. Meng said that he was a Black Spirit. He was a bit harsh and valued rules above all else. Ruin asked if that wasn't too much. Ruin said that everyone literally refuses to attend his class. Yun said that the class lasts 2 hours of hell, and he needs to be with the Flame Blade Master all day, so he's already gone. Ms. Peng also said that they had observed the Heavenly Justice Group enough. And anyway, they were originally here for the Red Falcon team. But Hung replied that he had gone through these classes several times before, so he would refuse. Ruin said that even the 3rd Shining Sword who studied here refused. Myung answered the boy that he said that the child, Chung-hee, came with him this time. Ruin answered that everything was correct and asked if they were friends. Mung said that this guy was his student. Although he was a mentor who understood more about drinking and partying, it was immediately obvious that he was a smart and talented kid. Ruin was surprised and asked then, why did Chun Hung suddenly have a good mentor like him? Men replied that no. Rather, such an insignificant Taoist with a horse's face unexpectedly had a good student. And you never know how fate will turn out. It's been a while since he met such an interesting guy like him. And since they've all eaten and drunk, why don't they practice? And does the boy want to see the sword technique he recently mastered? Ryun asked for free. If so, he agrees. Men started laughing and told the guy how cute he was, and he hadn't met anyone like him in a long time. So he was curious about what this technique would look like in his eyes. Men immediately began to use the technique and applied the 3 passions of the Great Limit Wisdom Sword, and then used the Sky Network enhancement. The attack was so strong that the mercenaries saw rays of light in the sky. The leader of the Hidden Soul Squad, Han Ju Myung, asked what kind of monster this was and ordered the squad to carefully investigate everything there. Bloody Blade. Hebun was in the forest at that moment and said that on Mount Wuding, only killing was needed. The old man started laughing and said that Hebun had managed to reach Mount Wudong. Chasing a madman like this was a completely new experience for him, but the magician told him that his new experience was just crap. He was dying of boredom. At least he would be there soon, and then he would manage on his own. The old man asked without the bell to stir the soul. He would even be interested to see what would happen when his spell technique dissipated. The magician told him not to talk nonsense. Didn't he know that he had been mixing spell pills into his food for several days and fumigating him with soul-summoning incense, and only then using the spell? And the bell is just an auxiliary signal. When the darkness of the heavenly demon used the spell technique, he was already completely caught in the net, and his crazy head had nothing left but this ringing. Rian at that moment looked at the master's technique and said that it was magnificent. Chief Mung started laughing and said that he had rubbed his bones. And that was quite funny. And how did the boy like what he saw, he asked. Ruin asked him in response, didn't it feel like the strength and speed of the threads that were created by the sword energy were too tight? And the idea is not bad, but if you apply even a little force, it will break. Ruin demonstrated his strength and destroyed. Men was very surprised and could not believe it. But who would have thought that he would pinpoint the exact moment that had caused him so much pain? Had this child really reached the same level as him? Men asked the boy that he saw this at his age. But who is he? Ruin answered that he is a young man, a pure genius and simply the best in the world. And the best in the world can be added to all the words in the sentence. Pure, genius, and young man. Men replied that for some reason he wanted to say that he was wrong in all directions. Especially when it came to cleanliness, he didn't often meet such evil people. Ruin said that such a kind young man like him is spoiled, and probably Grandpa must be joking. Apparently this is a flock of sparrows that appeared when he opened the net. Are they his friends or something? Men replied that he had never been friends with such huge sparrows, and they were so inconspicuous that he himself had only recently discovered them. That's because he was focused on technique, but this kid sensed them earlier and still remained unperturbed. Ruin said that then, could a wonderful young man like him deal with them as payment for the food? Men laughed and replied that if he could, that would indeed be enough as payment. And even better, the sparrows are already flying. I got very angry and slammed my foot on the ground and said, who dared to spread their anger on the sacred Wuding Mountain? The mercenaries immediately all came out into the light, but Ryan replied that if you think about it, this network, it has the power to pierce the heavens. Then there won't be a problem if its meshes are larger. Ruin used her powers and said something like this, and used the energy of the sword of striking thunder, palm of snares in the sky and nets on the ground, and then used the sky-tearing thunder nets. Men saw this and was very surprised. He also did not believe his eyes. The mercenaries were trapped in the net and could not pass through it, but the injuries from it were very severe and unbearable. I understood what this was all about, and I said that it was simply absurd. After all, this couldn't be. He understood that the martial art this child was using was definitely the same as what he had seen 100 years ago. He immediately remembered how they told him to give up. After all, he was still young and didn't understand much about this. He still wanted to kill him, but the warrior replied that his name was Kansan Ilshvi, and he would not give up. Men looked at all this and did not believe. After all, the one who was raised by the elders of the 9 great factions, paralyzed with fear. But the warrior did not give up and used the inexhaustibility of the great limit. Mung immediately realized that this was the most perfect sort of wisdom of the great limit that he had seen so far. And no matter how powerful that old man was, he couldn't block it. But Ilchwi used all his strength to prove the boy wrong, and used a net attack. Ilchwi immediately told Menu, who was hiding in the bushes, to quickly take the young man away before he died. I took my comrade and thought on the way, how did Ilchvi reach such a level? And that old man really pierced the heavens. With one movement of his hand, he threw the hope of the 9 great factions to the ground. And now Mung too has found the purpose of his life. Only that old man knows that he hid and saw everything that day. He imprinted deep in his heart what he saw then and did not tell anyone. Because just 1 second, he wanted to repeat that one single second that was imprinted in his soul so much that he built his art on its basis, which is the pride of the Wudong school. And in the end, he wanted to crush it. For 50 years, he tirelessly developed his technique. And the 3 passions of the Great Limit Wisdom Sword were very similar to that movement. But he couldn't help but think that something was missing. And suddenly it dawned on him. This is freedom. In that momentary movement of the old man, there was contained the freedom of the unbound heaven and earth. And from the day he realized this, he always tried to reject the rules and put freedom into his sword. Men asked the boy how he managed to do it. What was missing from his sword? Ryun replied that his sword was not yet free. And perhaps he is not free because he is bound by an obsession to free himself? I thought and understood something from the guy's words. He immediately realized that this was it, the chain that had bound him since that day. He immediately used his powers and got rid of the chains. After this, his strength immediately increased several times. He began to rejoice that he finally managed to do it. Ruin said he was glad his grandpa had so much energy at his age. Now he could stretch his legs too. He grabbed one of the mercenaries and said that they say that people like him won't open their mouths no matter what happens. And he believes in it too. But that's why he's confident that he can endure whatever he does. The mercenary tried to say something and was in pain. Ruin asked if he really promised to tell everything if he took the gag out of his mouth. So he decided to commit suicide like the others? The mercenary tried to answer him, but he couldn't and just shook his head. But Ruin said he was lying, and he had heard before that people like him, once their mouths were freed, would bite off their tongues and commit suicide. And even if he's not lying, he shouldn't do it. And it doesn't matter what he does to him with his head, shoulders, knees, fingers, and toes. And it doesn't matter what condition his bones, muscles, digestive, respiratory, cardiovascular, or any other system are in. And shouldn't he show his professionalism and strength of spirit, keeping his mouth shut and not revealing his secret? Ruin turned to the old man and asked, "He was right, right?" Meng replied that they had to clean up the place where they had eaten. He was too busy to think about such things. And anyway, he hadn't seen anything. Ruin asked the mercenary if he heard. It was tacit consent. In other words, Grandpa was saying he was right. Ruin immediately swung his hand at him and told the mercenary not to let him down. I heard everything and said on the one hand that it was real, but it was not real. And I imagined how the bunny was preparing food for them next to the lake. Suddenly, men looked up at the sky and said it was going to rain. And the moon wasn't visible yet, but it was already dark. He asked the boy if he was finished. Ruin replied that he had kneaded the dough properly, and suddenly it occurred to him that there was a place where he was urgently needed. Ruin said goodbye to him and said that they would see each other next time. Today was very tasty. Meng replied that he would look forward to their next meeting. I said goodbye to him and said that there were 3 pieces of dough that were still breathing only because they had fainted. And he thinks that they will have to return with him to the main building of the school, and he sets off on his way. At that moment, Ruin was flying and said that the air currents were so unusual. He even became curious about what happened. But when he climbed the mountain, he saw the bodies of the mercenaries lying in front of him. The captain met him and continued to fight with the rest of the mercenaries. Ruin looked at them and asked who gave them these scratches. The girl replied that it was because of an ambush. Mrs. Peng asked Ruin, "Why is he the one from the Heavenly Justice Group here at this time? But no, why is he standing there like a fool? Does he want to die?" Ruin got really angry and decided to yell at the students. But Hawk immediately said, "No, it's not because of their skills. It's all those damn mercenaries. There are too many of them." Elle immediately told Hawk that he was in no position to argue now. He also replied that he was not injured. He was just bitten by a mosquito. But the sister told him to shut up immediately. But the students said that in fact, these robbers had crept up when everyone was washing and resting. Suddenly, Un shouted to the elder to be careful. At that moment, several mercenaries rushed at Ruin. Ruin was very angry and asked, "Did they leave scratches on his things?" He immediately used the thunder-slashing sword, Thunder Sword, Death Strike chapter. Then he used the thunder and lightning of the phoenix, and the rays immediately hit the bodies of the mercenaries. Each mercenary then lay motionless on the ground, and they were all dead. All the students were surprised by such power. Even Mrs. Peng thought it was impossible. Ruin approached the captain and asked where the others were. The captain replied that Mentor Flameblade, Yun, and the Heavenly Justice Group had gone to extra training. Third Shining Sword and Saul went there to observe. Mrs. Peng suddenly said that it was not far from Wuding School. It should be safe. She asked Ryun's disciple, shouldn't he be with the Heavenly Justice Group? Why did he come here and alone? But she suddenly thought, was that really what she wanted to ask? She knew he was strong, but just now he had knocked everyone down in one moment, like a ghost. What was that anyway? Ruin asked, and then Miss Rin, where is she? The captain replied that since Sol is not here, she said that she wanted to take a walk alone and went to that mountain. Ruin didn't hesitate and immediately went after her to make sure she didn't fall into a trap. But it turns out that Rin was sitting in the mountain and was slightly wounded in the arm. She fell into the mercenary's trap. The girl turned to Mrs. Peng and asked if she was okay. She was still not injured, but for some reason she had turned very pale. Tan also asked, "Is this a situation where you should laugh?" Mrs. Peng replied that it was nothing like that. It was just a little disturbing. Tan replied that it was all because that shaggy guy ran away headlong, ignoring her words. But who would want to be near that shaggy guy anyway? Miss Na was unlucky that she was too polite to that devil, but she thinks it's for the best today. He's strong after all. Mrs. Peng says she doesn't care. She has no expectations for Ruin's apprentice. She is only worried because the killers dared to show up here. After she finds out what is happening with the Heavenly Justice Group, she must immediately contact the Academy. The captain heard this and said it was a wise idea. Fortunately, it looks like the guys from the Heavenly Justice Group are okay. And then Flameblade ran up with the others and asked the guys, "There were fools among them? No one died?" The disciples said no. Soon the boy said that he was very lucky. The Heavenly Justice Group arrived after Senior Flameblade had dealt with the situation, but since there were still disciples here, they were worried. The guard asked how they dared to invade the Wudong clan's territory, but now they can all calm down and rest. They and the senior disciple will use the flaming blade to find Miss Rin and the disciple Ryan. But suddenly Flameblade told them to stop and asked them if they had seen it just now. It's going to rain. In other words, if they go to the mountains right now, they'll get rained on. The guard also said that they had to hurry so that the students wouldn't get hurt. Flameblade asked him what he was talking about. He meant that they themselves would get hurt by the rain. These two can take care of themselves, so there is no point in doing useless things, and he suggested that they just rest. He understood that this could not be, but it seemed to him that he heard the voice of that devil. They began to be indignant and said that Miss Na was the precious daughter of the current head of the Heavenly Alliance. Flameblade said that if they wanted to stop so much, he wouldn't. But he and the boys shouldn't be dragged into this. And don't worry, if even one of them dies, he'll take responsibility. Mistress Peng asked the Flameblade Master what he was talking about. Sul also suggested that they all go and look for them together. Flameblade replied that with her skills, she would only get in the way. He asked the Red Falcon team if there was anyone who wanted to go. The captain immediately replied that they could not. And Un asked if they would have rabbit or boar for dinner. Mrs. Peng also said that if they go, they will only hinder them. It is better not to go anywhere. Sol began to panic and asked them what they were talking about. Mrs. Peng replied that the two of them didn't need to worry about being attacked, so they should stop worrying about them. But Heron said that even though she said so, what would they do? Even though Ryan was not in any danger, could they leave him like this? The security bureau went up the mountain, and seeing the dead mercenaries, one of them said that all the attackers had cut wounds, as if from a sword. It's hard to tell for sure because of the rain, but there were no large bloodstains around. The leader said that, as the Flameblade had said, the two were definitely safe, and perhaps just hiding somewhere from the rain or even returning to camp. The guard said that the rain was already getting heavier, and he asked the chief, why shouldn't they retreat in that case? The Wudong clan had already shown the academy enough of its diligence. The chief replied that it was very good. Half of them should collect the bodies and take them to the main building. The rest should search everything along the road. Heron hid at this moment and told Brother Cheng Hong that if they followed the people from the Wudong clan, he thought they would find Ryun. Maybe he had already returned to the camp. Cheng Hong told him to wait a bit and watch. Suddenly, Heron told Brother Cheng Hong that he looked like a professional killer or a detective expert. What was that? Cheng Hong replied that he was just good at it because he was collecting herbs. In short, the ice phoenix did not go down to the camp, but up. Heron looked and asked, "Brother up talking?" Cheng Hong answered that yes. Since all the killers had sword marks on them, the ice phoenix dealt with them single-handedly. Since more enemies could come after, she probably took cover somewhere nearby, in a place where she could clearly see the surrounding area and where she could recuperate. And it's not far to the top, and there's plenty of space there to hide, and Ruin probably went there too. At this time, Rin was in the cave and felt that she was tired, and it probably wouldn't be safe to go down from here at night. After all, she doesn't even know if more enemies will come, and there's also a downpour. But this place, suddenly Ruin appeared and asked her if she was going to dry her clothes. And it seemed she needed this fire more than he did. She had used up a lot of her strength. Rin immediately told him that she refused. She was fine and didn't have to worry. Ruin held out his clothes and said that he was not okay. He was warm and dry. Why shouldn't she wrap herself in him? It wasn't very smart of her to remain like that in front of a man. Rin replied that after such words she didn't want to come closer even more. And how did he know she was here? Ruin replied that when he was downstairs, he saw a couple of assassins looking for her. After dealing with one without any problems, he found the next ones and so on until he came across her. And if she is so afraid of him that she cannot rest, how will she then restore her energy? His teacher had previously told him that one should not run away from one's fears forever, and also that if the root is ground into powder, it will be good for one's health. Of all the things his teacher had said, he completely agreed with this one, because you can't solve a problem by simply avoiding it. Rin suddenly told him that they spoke the same thing. Ryun was surprised and asked her what she was talking about. Rin sat down and replied that although she said it not with words but with actions, there was a person who made her do truly difficult things, not helping, but only encouraging. Ryun asked her if she liked it. Rin said yes. She liked that she didn't get help and did everything herself, because it was the first time she did something on her own. Rin looked and asked if it was ginseng. Ryun said no, it was the bellflower root his 25-year-old uncle gave him. It tasted like expensive ginseng, so he left some. By this time, Heron had found the cave and told his brother that it looked like they were here. They could look into his friend's sweet nest. Changhong immediately told him to stop. He had a bad feeling about this. An eagle flew over the mountain and landed on Go's hand. He brought a letter to his master. Go looked and saw that the letter said that all the remaining boys were dead. They dared to attack the academy students in the Wuding territory. He immediately ordered the others to return to Wuding immediately. And it doesn't matter if they discover them or not, the main thing is as quickly as possible. Heron asked his brother what he was talking about. Chang Hong pointed a branch at him and told him to look. Heron told him that if he was going to punish Ruan for stepping out of line a little, maybe it would have been better to throw a stone. Chun Hong replied, what other punishment? It just usually takes into account the behavior of a fool. Throwing the stick straight into the cave, it broke into small pieces. Chung Hong asked him if he could see. Heron was shocked and said that this couldn't be. Ryuan was trying to kill them? Chung Hong replied that he didn't know they were coming, so he prepared this against the killers. Heron said that if you look closely, there is a very sweet atmosphere inside. He told brother Chung Hong to stop him before he does anything bad. Chung Hong replied that they couldn't allow that. He would go ahead. At that moment, Ruin was eating the root and regaining his strength. Rin immediately said that it seemed like there were assassins outside. Ruin said no. It was just earthworms crawling out, and suddenly he asked her if she remembered. During the Three Masters Festival, she promised to teach him. How about using the free time today? Rin was surprised and asked, now? She immediately said that she agreed, and she has not yet fully restored her inner strength. But since it is his request, she will do everything possible. Rin was surprised and asked her why she was grabbing a sword in such a peaceful time. Rin replied that she had just asked her to teach him. The guy said yes, but if possible, he wanted to get the most out of the lesson, to learn about what she liked and what she didn't. Rin asked that the training consisted of asking her about things like that. Ryun replied that of course it did. For example, what food, tea, or color she likes, in what weather she feels a surge of energy. Rin asked him why he needed to know something like that. Ryun replied that he just wanted to get to know her better. After all, when she cares about someone, she always wants to know what that person likes. Rin was surprised that he simply wanted to get to know her better. Had there ever been a man other than her father who was interested in this? She wondered. Ruin told her that if such questions were unpleasant to her, then there was no point in answering them. He was interested in getting to know her slowly, and now he was going to catch some worms. Rin said she didn't feel bad, but he's such a strange man, and even with the help of the dragon's eyes, she can't figure out what's on his mind. But he's definitely different from other men. Ruin suddenly suggested that they spend this precious time together, and suddenly Rin heard strange voices. Rin asked what that voice was. Wasn't it Heron's? Ruin replied that it was just an owl hooting, which sounded like Heron's voice, although it was a little strange that it was hooting in such rainy weather. Rin listened and said that it seemed like he was here with Chung Hong. It would be better for Ryun to remove the traps he had set up outside so that they wouldn't get hurt. Ruin said that they would continue today's conversation next time. The guys immediately entered and said that it seemed like they had broken through. Heron told his brother that it seemed like there was nothing wrong with it, and he asked Ruin why he didn't let them in. Changhong also said that he knew he was shameless, but just that much. Ruin said that he just thought that earthworms were trying to crawl into the cave, so he stopped them. So isn't he being too harsh? Changhong immediately started yelling at him and saying that he was the worst. And what's that in his mouth? It looks like a bellflower root that he's not familiar with. Now let him stop chewing it. Ruin asked him if he was serious. He felt so sorry for those bells. Rin also thought at that moment, why did they come? Changhong told the boy that to the boy they were just bells, but to him they were as valuable as ginseng. Fortunately, Mrs. Na was safe, but he made her an accomplice. Changhong remembered that he had also felt before that he couldn't clearly see this person's intentions. He didn't feel any greed or lust. Perhaps it was him. Earlier, the leader told Rin to be on guard with all the young people in the academy. Heron suddenly told Ryun to give him some too. Otherwise, he had wasted his energy outside and was getting hungry. And he saw that the guy hadn't made a big mistake. In any case, he was glad that Miss Na was safe and sound. And he didn't remember meeting his aunt, but a cousin was a cousin. Ruin asked the guy who made him break in here, but can they imagine how scared Miss Na was when such bores as him and the uncle broke in here? Rin suddenly said that she wasn't very surprised, but it was already late at night. She knew that they were men anyway. It wasn't right to be with them at night. Rin stood up and said she would go and rest in the middle. As she left, she heard them continue to chat. Guo was trapped at this moment, leaving behind a lot of blood. He understood that the twin killers of heaven and earth were on Mount Wudong, and now he understands that he must survive and report. The old man asked the magician, did he miss the small fish? And the sword of the spell has outlived its usefulness. The magician replied that he was tired of controlling that guy, so he had to catch all the small fish. The old man said that they were already close, but it was still his fault. And if the magician was in such a difficult situation, maybe he should follow him. The magician replied that they would simply leave him. Even if he called someone, it would be too late, because he would open the doors to hell today. The old man said they had high expectations of the kids. He's already up, right? The magician replied that he had risen. So what? The spell made the bastard look like a scarecrow. The old man said, what difference does it make if all he has to do is destroy everything here? He just has to put on a good show. The old man suddenly thought and asked, would he be able to make any noise here? The magician replied that he didn't know. As soon as he set foot here, he had to make some adjustments. He even gave him back the things he originally used. Now all that's left is to follow him and watch. But in the morning, in the clan, Hui woke up earlier than everyone else and sat on the Divina. But Yun told him that there was no morning training today. And because of yesterday this morning, Mentors Flameblade and Son of Infinity will hold a meeting in the Wuding territory. Hui replied that the essence of the training of the mentor of the Son of Infinity is that every day, under any circumstances, without a drop of indignation, he moves according to a predetermined plan. And even the absence of a mentor should not be an obstacle to the morning training. Yun said that he would then pass on all the information to the brothers. We said he wouldn't stop them then, but there was no guarantee they would come, and it was time for him to go too. Yun looked and said that he thought they would come back once they found Rywan, but he hoped that nothing happened to them. But Yun knew that Rian, Heron, and Brother Changhong were incredibly strong. He wanted to become stronger too, so he could go with them next time. Yun immediately got out of bed and said that yes, he would try. He would try twice as hard, even if he was on the verge of death. Yun immediately went to the forest and began training. He decided to use the plum blossom. But at the moment of training, he suddenly fell to the ground, and one of the passers-by began to laugh at him. Chief Meng saw him and said what an interesting kid he was. At such a young age and already at the level of a fragrant sword, and with allergies too. Men came out of the bushes and asked the guy, why is he scared? No need to worry. He's just a Taoist with a horse face, not some suspicious guy. Yun immediately introduced himself to the elder of Wudong and asked for forgiveness for his appearance. Meng asked in surprise, what elder? He was shocked that at his age he had reached the level of a fragrant sword, and the guy still apologized for his appearance. He came to see that boy, but there was another one. He thought his student was a genius. Kids are scary lately. Yun told the Taoist that he was simply praising him. Perhaps the disciple they were looking for was Changhong or Heron. Men answered that number. These always grumble when they meet. The student he is looking for is exceptionally pleasant and has an unusual sense of gratitude. And he hadn't heard his name, but he called himself a pure genius. Something like that. Yun asked in surprise. Pure genius? Perhaps he was talking about the seventh divine sword Hui? Men replied that he definitely wasn't. The holy sword was outstanding, but this boy couldn't possibly be from the Moan clan. This pure genius was raised by heaven and earth, was able to understand the essence of nature and become its benefactor. Yun wondered who this was, although in fact, he had heard many times in some places where someone called himself a pure genius. But Ryan couldn't possibly be the purely pleasant benefactor that the elder spoke of. Men got angry and said that this is what it means, a connection of fate. Apparently he won't meet him today, but that's nothing. And the fact that they met is also fate. What kind of relationship is he in with his adopted brother then? His name is Yu Huangwan, also known as the Holy Plum Blossom Sword in the Hua Mountain faction. He is also crazy about the sword, just like the guy, and their scent is similar. Yun said that since they call the great teacher brother, then his name, and then the guy froze in surprise and even got a little scared. He remembered his master saying that he had an old younger brother, a crazy swordsman from Wudong. Men said yes. This horse-faced Daso is the son of the Black Sword. Brother wouldn't tell anyone about him, but since he knows he is that boy, the precious genius is his brother's disciple. Yun bowed and replied that he was asking forgiveness for not recognizing. But although he had received special favor from the great teacher, he was only a disgraceful disciple who could not even follow his instructions correctly. Meng laughed and said that this was the first time he had seen how colorful Wudong had become recently. If not a flock of sparrows, then a meeting with a pure genius or a disgraced disciple. Men clapped his hands and said that yesterday he received, "Today is the time to give." He grabbed Yun and dragged him away. Men said that when they meet his brother later, he should definitely brag that his younger brother taught him the right way. Hui decided to practice too and was alone in the forest. He thought that he had done one move 300 times and now he was done. And he noticed that his sword accuracy had improved, but it was not enough to understand the secret meaning. And he decided that he asked Hung for a training fight. But his senses suddenly worked and he immediately looked into the forest and realized that someone was coming. He immediately realized that it was the master, and he felt a shudder run through his body. But Rin also said on the way that she had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. Chung Hong also said that there are no mentors today. They need to hurry up. Running into the forest, Round suddenly stopped and asked what kind of situation this was. But Heron suddenly felt the same power he had seen before. He was afraid and immediately lowered his sword, and he realized that it was his older brother. Ruin asked what the situation was, but Heron suddenly just became confused and was not himself. Moan immediately stood up to protect the boys and saw that the enemy was attacking them with 4 incarnations. The enemy's strength was so powerful that it was difficult to even see the sword strikes. But Moan was able to withstand the enemy's sword attacks and tried to deflect all the blows to stay alive. But he understood that even if they looked false, all the blows were fatal. And this time, the real one is coming. But he decided to use the sword technique, the falling stars of the Milky Way. And then he used the dance, shaking the air of the falling star. Namgun and his team found themselves in the forest and heard a strange thunder, and he asked what it was. The girl also asked the others, "Is there really only one attacker?" The group member also said that he saw only one person. But that can't be. But the princess asked why the Flame Blade Master was never around at such moments. The younger sister took a closer look and told the other kids that Rin was there too. Ruin saw the mercenaries and said that it was them again, and it was really pissing him off. They were like flies that had flocked to see what was going on here. Hack and his group stopped in the forest and looked around and said that these were the damn killers again. He himself was so tired that he asked if they would need to be beaten up too, but his sister called him a fool and told him to leave them, and let him take a closer look at the situations and act accordingly. Elder sister Sama asked why they were just standing there, and as far as she could see, they weren't here to attack them. But there is a risk that if they interfere in the fight, then they will interfere too. And this fight is only between the 7th divine sword Moen Hui and an unknown monster. Heron recalled the memories when the chief told them that those who entered the separation pavilion of the heavenly demon pavilion would be given a 3-year term. And all this time they will be between life and death. But this is a chance for them to rise to the main branch of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, and they only need to survive. All the students answered loudly that they understood everything perfectly. But at that moment, people saw a strange child and said that he was so small, and he's probably 12, and the youngest of those who entered the Pavilion of Farewells. And here he is, a monster. But if we talk about the monster, it's more about his older brother. But how much persistence and talent do they have? They are relatives after all, and the Blade of Darkness is the same. But someone called the guy a fool and asked him what he thought. The Blade of Darkness is such a talent? Then let him go on a tour of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And it occurred to one of them that this was all true, and maybe he should befriend him and call him Big Brother. He was asked if he thought he would be given a place under the leadership of the leader of the Dark Alliance. The guy asked in response, didn't he? But a friend called him a dumbass and said that their family treated their own relatives like rat droppings. And then Heron saw his older brother and let him know that he was there too. The elder met the younger and said that he had finally come to the pavilion of the Heavenly Demon. Heron replied that it was true, he had done it, and so he would like his brother to greet him better. The elder did not argue with him and said that he welcomed him here, and let B meet his noisy boy, his younger brother. Heron made his respects and introduced himself first, and said that he had entered the Pavilion of Farewells. The elder brother said that this was the second prince of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, and his closest friend. The boy told the younger boy that he could call him B. Heron told the boy that since he was his brother's best friend, he was like an older brother to him. And brother B can think of him as a little brother and let him buy more food. B said that the brother and the younger one are very similar. Both have enough skills to become the youngest applicants, and their personalities are similar. The elder asked in surprise, were he and this shameless man really alike? Was he trying to insult him? But he didn't think he could forgive him until he bought him an expensive drink. Bai replied that he would like to treat him himself, because today he met a talent that would soon become the third prince. But today he would have to go to the head of the pavilion. The elder told his friend that he should run away again. This time they would let him go, but next time he would have to party with them all night. Bai replied that they would definitely do the same with the Grand Prince and the third Prince of Ren. The elder brother also said goodbye and said that they would see each other later. Heron asked after the guest left and asked the elder, aren't he and B reversible? But they call each other the second prince. Isn't that embarrassing? The elder replied that he was just a fool. He didn't know anything, or was just trying to come up with ways to die. And the younger one was in such a hurry to get to him that he lost his head on the way or something. But now he knows that Heron is a stupid little brother. The terms Great Prince and Second Prince denote their rank. This status implicitly indicates what position the pavilion leader assigned them based on their abilities. Heron saw his brother making fun of him and asked him not to do that. And how could he know? But why did brother B just call him the third prince? The elder replied that it meant that he would soon reach that level. His friend had a keen eye. Heron asked, so that's what it means? Then next time I meet the second prince, I must thank him for the compliment. The elder asked with surprise, a compliment? But how naive he is. Let him listen carefully. With such simple thinking, he will get more than one bump in the pavilion of the Heavenly Demon. And it was a threat that he could reach the level of the third prince, but not higher. Although B is gentle, he is surprisingly arrogant. Heron asked, what if he can take such a place? Or is it not easy to defeat his brother? The elder replied that although their mother was not well, their father was always busy because he was the heavens that illuminated the entire Alliance of Darkness. But he is like Cal Heron, his younger brother, the son of the leader of the Dark Alliance, the grandson who inherited the blood of the demon warrior. Let him not even forget about it. But they have a long way to go. And not only in this cramped pavilion of the Heavenly Demon, their grandfather is a demon warrior, and in their lineage, there is also a bloody god of heavenly sorrow. But he will run ahead of him until he jumps over these two. So let him not lose sight of him and run after him, gritting his teeth. And if he had enough strength, he could overtake him. And suddenly, after a few years, Heron finally met his brother and was shocked. Hearing about his older brother, Ruin asked again what he said. Chang Hong replied that Heron called him, and he would explain it to him later. But Chung Hong was also shocked and wondered where the bloody blade Cal Haibong came from on Mount Wudong. What kind of psychopath did this? and he can't get his thoughts in order and come up with a solution? After all, the son of the leader of the Dark Alliance will die, and the heirs of the Heavenly Alliance present here will also die. And as he now sees, it is a battle between darkness and heaven. Heron saw this and shouted at Hui to dodge. And this is Hui's crossblade. Moen saw that the real attack would come from behind. Namgung shouted after that. The shockwave from their fight became stronger. Let everyone be careful. The disciple replied that now, of course, the situation is not quite right to talk about it, but the seventh divine sword is really amazing. Jiren said that it was exactly like that. Even though he was the descendant of the Holy Sword, he was still only a first-year student, and he was holding up like that. But what kind of horrors was that madman doing? Hung also said that he couldn't believe that Hui's skills had improved so much. It was already on a completely different level than it was during their fight. But the girl replied that it was no time to have fun. The fact that the effects had spread to such an area meant that the power of that psycho was uncontrollable. But how long can Moen Hui's disciple hold out against such a monster? Moen tried to resist the enemy and managed to dodge. Moen saw that the attack had missed, but Heron shouted at him to dodge, and the real attack would come from behind. Moen dodged again and realized that if he was even a second late, his head would have been blown off. And it was Hui's crossblade. The girl said that not only did the killers appear after him, but this monster was also a martial arts master of the Dark Alliance. Hung replied that he guessed the name of the Dark Alliance's martial art just by the movement. How is that even possible? Jiren asked if he knew this martial art. El replied that he probably did, and very well. The girl asked if he had met an enemy who used it before. The student replied that judging by the expression on Heron's student's face, that was not the case. Heron shouted at Hui that pairing the attack was not enough. If the attack was not cut off properly, Hui's crossblade would return again and again. Chung Hong was thinking about the seventh divine sword. He couldn't calm this fool down now. The student asked his ally, "Which school is this guy from?" Most likely this school has deep ties with the Alliance of Darkness. Namgung replied that it was not the most urgent issue right now, and it seemed that the seventh divine sword was already having a hard time holding on. And if it continues like this, the student continued, that outsiders interfere in a one-on-one fight, it is a little strange, but in a situation where life is in danger. He himself answered that he would release some energy of murderous lust, and this psycho would attack him first. The girl asked them, what if something goes wrong? Only the one they all love and hate so much can intervene and change the situation in their favor. Hawk got angry and asked why he kept just standing there and watching. But Namgung shouted that even if it didn't work, he had to. But the disciple shouted to the captain that since he was going to see his senior classmate, he should not forget to use the voice transmission technique. Namgung approached his older classmate and asked if he could help him, but then at least let him tell them what to do. Ruin asked in surprise, "Help Hui? But why would he do that?" He told Namgung that he hates investments that don't give back. And does he think this guy will be grateful for his help? Or does Namgung think he's crazy enough to help him for nothing? Namgung shouted that no, but in this situation it was only natural to help. Ryun could not resist after these words and grabbed his student by the clothes. And with a swing of his hand, he simply threw him to the side. But Namgung managed to ensure himself and got to his feet. Namgung asked his classmate what he was doing. But when he raised his head, he saw strange people and thought, when did they appear? And their thirst for murder made his hair stand on end. And now he had to strike quickly while they were near their senior classmate. But suddenly Namgung looked at his back and saw that he was wounded and had scratches. He couldn't believe it. He didn't even feel any pain. And then just now, at the moment when he almost became a victim of this terrible old man's sword, the old man asked, what had he done wrong? The two who should have been dead were fine. How strange. But Namung knew that his older classmate had thrown him aside. Ruin told them that they had crept up on him like ghosts to do this, even though they themselves were about to die of old age. Wasn't that too much for them? And although it is not too late for them to truly become ghosts, the old man got very angry and asked the boy why he wanted to die so much. Ruin pretended not to understand anything and asked if it was him, and it turns out the old man is not very perceptive. The old man simply did not talk to him any further and attacked with his strong and powerful attack. Namgung saw this and decided that he needed to help his older classmate. But because of their lust for murder, he couldn't even move. All the other students were already preparing to attack, but suddenly a fire attack flew by, and someone from the flames shouted for them to move away. The old man said it was him again, and the bloody blade replied that he wanted to say the same thing. And how dare he touch his children? Bloody Blade asked the boy if he was okay, and now he would take care of everything here, so let the kid get out of here. Rune told the mentor that it was a good job. Bloody Blade was angry and knew that he should have left things as they were. And he thought that one of the kids was here, and he ran. Who would have thought that this idiot would be here? And now it looks like he is protecting this little devil because he is his mentor. The fat man suddenly started laughing and said, "Is this a fool who is radiating bloody chi?" And now he's glad to see him. "Has it been 15 years, burnt dog meat?" The Bloody Blade replied that it had been 15 years, and it seems to him that he only has more fat, so it should burn well, because today he wanted to cook roast pig. The fat man replied that it was a good offer, and they could finish his etiquette training that he had started 15 years ago. Bloody Blade pulled out his sword and said, "You fat pig just tried it. He'll finish it in 10 seconds. Even before help from the Wudong school arrives." At this point, Moon was still fighting an enemy that simply could not be defeated. But suddenly the enemy simply started screaming out of anger and threw out all his anger. But Heron decided to fight him and shouted to his brother. But Chang Hong also ran after him and seemed to try to stop his friend. Ruin also did not stay aside and also ran to help them. The mercenaries immediately saw this and also entered the battle. After pushing off several obstacles, the enemy simply pulled out his sword and struck the mercenary with one blow. But Heron couldn't stay in place either and flew to attack his brother. But Ruin didn't let him do it and attacked his friend from different sides. Chang Hong looked at it and told him that he should have blocked the attack. Why did he have to hit him like that? Especially since he had already knocked him out. His ribs were almost sticking out. Ruin replied that although Heron had suddenly fallen ill with a fool's disease, he was fine and his bones were intact. But he, Chang Hong, had mercilessly hit him on the back of the head. What if he would remain a fool forever? Chang Hong said that he was worried that he called him brother, but ran in the wrong direction, and he just hit him in a friendly way, and there is no need to worry, and quickly let him throw him on his back. Ruin asked him why he would do that. The leader of the Red Falcons team is free. Let him ask for help. The girl heard them and asked what those two were doing now. The younger one replied that it looked like he needed to be escorted out of here, so she would have to help. At that moment, Hyun was saying that this was some kind of continuous series of incomprehensible situations. What was going on? The Red Falcon disciple replied that everything was correct, but he thought that the one who was most shocked right now was the seventh divine sword. And suddenly, in the middle of a life-or-death battle, something so incomprehensible could happen. At that moment, Moen was simply exhausted. Hung said the same thing. Moen, of course, looks like a madman, but who would have thought that he would suddenly abandon his opponent and start indiscriminately cutting down his own? The enemy simply could not stop after this, and with each attack he removed the mercenaries from his path. The old men saw all this and were dissatisfied. The fat man said that because of the loud scream, the spell technique was destroyed. At that moment, Can was shouting that Fatso was just a pig, and let him stop pulling the cat by the balls and attack already. The old man said that it seemed that the spell problem was caused by the fierce battle with the grandson of the Holy Sword. How it infuriates him. The fat man laughed and replied that it was just dog meat, and he promised to kill him next time. Can could not stand it, and releasing his flame from his sword, asked the fat man what he was carrying, and where was he going to run off to. The fat man turned around and said he was very sorry, but he was busy today. Khan told him not to worry, he would only need a second to burn him. If he didn't attack, something else would happen. But suddenly Ruin came up and told Khan to just leave them. They would come anyway, so there was no point in complicating the situation now. Khan was completely dissatisfied with his words and did not want to leave his rival. Ryun told him that if he killed someone, there would be no turning back, so there was nothing he could do. Namgung also came up to them and asked what this meant, but he was tired because he was carrying Heron. Ruin replied that this meant that he asked for proper care of Heron. Changong also said that he was so sorry that he had to carry him. In return, he would accompany them and protect them. But then the junior apprentice came up and told them to leave it to her. Rin looked and replied that fortunately it looked like they wouldn't attack here anymore. Suddenly, the old man dropped the medallion from his hands and said that they were falling behind. The enemy also stopped immediately upon hearing such an order, but suddenly he came to his senses and continued to destroy the mercenaries. The fat man asked his brother if he was resisting. Did his spell technique still work? The old man replied that he shouldn't worry. He wouldn't let her get away so easily. The old man wrapped the medallion around his hands several times again, and suddenly his eyes simply lit up with a white light. The younger sister just screamed at that moment that it was a sound attack. So much so that even the others couldn't stand it and covered their ears with their hands. The enemy simply felt the attack on his body with a sound that even his chest fell forward. At that moment, Moen felt that the sound was already dying down. And what was that anyway? The enemy simply stopped and fell into hypnosis. And the old man waved his medallion and ordered him to retreat. The enemy tried to resist, but the force of the technique was even stronger, so he leaned his knees on the ground. Ruin looked and said that apparently they control a person using sound. Is this really possible? Chung Hong replied that although it looked simple, it was most likely some kind of advanced soul summoning technique that used several methods at once. Chung Hong knew that no matter how crazy Cal Hebong was, he was still the eldest son of the leader of the Dark Alliance. How could he allow the twin assassins of heaven and earth to use such a move on him?